streaming again. What's happening, everyone? Normal America Show, surprise stream. Some downtime here. Well, he's back. Everyone thought he was gone forever. What a coincidence. USAID starts to get audited, and all of a sudden, Rob disappears. You know, these big dollar white t-shirts and my hat with the fire ember burn in it. Where do you think I'm getting the big bucks for all that? Once my Russian rubles dried up, it was the State Department, USAID. That's where I was getting all my big bucks. Coincidence? Yes, it is a coincidence. I'm happy to be here. I don't know how long we'll be able to go tonight, but wanted to try to get a stream in once more for the second week in a row. My streaming plans interrupted by my actual real-life, honest-to-goodness job in healthcare, as coworkers needed time off for different issues, which means I get stuck at work. But it's okay. Life goes on. You roll with the punches. I'm actually excited because theoretically, I have tomorrow, I have Thursday, and then I have an entire, 9 days off, which would be nice to actually have some time off. It feels like it's been forever. When I do get a day off, it's usually one day, and I'm back. So here I am. I get to stream a little tonight. I'm happy to be here with you. Who knows? Maybe there'll be some changes coming in my future, or my job hours will be declining precipitously. That would be nice. Again, Elon, if you're listening, big fan, pay me. That's okay. Elon paying me would be different than your tax dollars going to pay me. That would be a little worse, I think. But hey, man, that's what the Dems are all about, right? They're all about it. It's been an exciting week. It's been an exciting beginning to Trump's administration. I'm pleasantly surprised. Not that I like everything. We talked about it on recent shows. Tried to do a big long stream last Thursday. Since last Thursday, what have I been up to? I had a wedding. I put a picture of myself after I got to the wedding and loosened up a little, had a few beers, took my suit jacket off, was just in my dress shirt with my tie, a little loosened up. A couple people commented on how I didn't look that I was all that I could be. Now, I don't want to shock anyone by what I'm about to say here, but I'm not really an attractive guy. I don't care. I'm married. I don't give a shit. I'd like to lose weight for health reasons. But as far as not being the snappiest dresser, yeah, that's true. I never was. I never will be. I'm sort of the John Fetterman of the streaming world. Hoodie, gym shorts. When I debated, I told this story before, but you had to clean yourself up a little. But our rule was, at our university, if you made it to the last round, the elimination round of each tournament, you could wear what you want. So I used to wear my Slayer t-shirts, had the big long beard down to here and the long greasy hair. I was even fatter. I weighed 300 plus pounds. This is good. This is a good look. One benefit of that, I wasn't sending a lot of nude photos or videos to people, so I was staying out of that sort of trouble. But, yeah, never been the schnazziest dresser. I try to keep myself a little presentable now. I am a dad, so no Slayer t-shirts. But I thought it was funny. One guy said to me, first up, I was 3 beers in, so I wasn't drunk. But I was, starting to get a little tipsy. I'm a lightweight now. And, I made the stereotypical, someone said I looked ugly or something. I made it's not what your mom said joke. My wife's like, don't say that. So I deleted it. Then the guy's like, why'd you delete that? I was like, because my wife told me. Then another guy said, you expect in a photo like that for people to say, wow, you look elegant, but you look like a divorced dad on a dating app. Now, I'll say this. I have never in my life, as a man, for even one iota of a second, wanted anyone to think I looked, and I'm quoting now, elegant. Elegant's a word I would use to describe a lady that is wearing some classy formal wear. not a guy. I'm not really going for elegant, classy, snappy dresser. Uh, Elegant, though? I think the man who's saying that he wants to be called elegant's telling on himself more than me for a schlubby wedding photo. Anyways, wedding went well. We'll talk about it here in a second. There was one politically themed thing to occur at this wedding that I think's worth talking about. And hopefully there's a person that I'll be talking about. I hope they're watching, because there's some things I wanted to say to you, but I didn't because it was a wedding and I didn't want to ruin someone else's experience. Overall, the wedding was very fun. It was beautiful. I think the bride and groom had a good time, which is always the most important thing. And I got to see a lot of my friends that I'll also be seeing this weekend, going to a monster truck race. So it was a lot of fun. The only thing is, as an old man now, it wasn't, by no means was it an out of control wedding. There were people that got a little drunk, but it wasn't. Like when I was growing up, weddings always had fist fights at them, and the receptions were always held at the local fire hall, and they lasted till like 5 in the morning, and people got like blackout drunk. This was at like a nice facility that ended at like 10 p.m. No one got like piss pants drunk and had to be drug out of the place. There were no fist fights, anything of that nature. So for me, it's always like, oh, what a classy affair. What an elegant affair, you might say. But it was fine. But there was a happening that's worth talking about. I wonder if I'm allowed to say this. I don't know. We'll say it anyways. We don't care. There was a woman there who I'd never met. And the way our friend group, in this particular friend group, works is, and I'm sure this is the same in most friends groups, there's a core group of people that I know going back like 20 years. And then more people get added to that group. So someone will get married, or someone will start dating someone, or they bring a roommate, or they bring a friend that ends up sticking around. So my entire social circle sort of stopped when I was like 26 to 28, something like that. So I'm just kind of focused on the people I know, and that's it. Not that I'm rude. I think I'm a fun dinner guest. But so we're sitting at a table, we'll meet a couple new people, and they're fine, and we're just making small talk and whatever. One of the women in this group, who I've never met, but she has met my wife, because my wife did some like bridal shower stuff for this particular wedding and had a few dinners and what have with the people, sort of the women that were peripheral to this friend group in the wedding. And so this was a girl from there. And she, of course, at one of these events, announced that her ex was a Republican, and how she would, didn't want to be with a Republican guy ever again, and blah, 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 blah. How could anyone be Republican, especially a Trump supporter, blah, 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 blah. And needless to say, it was a little awkward because some of the girls in this group are Trump supporters, are Republicans, and so they're not going to say anything. And so my wife, trying to de-escalate this situation, said, well, actually, I voted for Trump, and my husband's a big Trump supporter, he's a big Republican. He actually ran for Congress as a Republican, but I don't think you would find him to be an immoral person. He's a fine person, and blah, blah, blah. And the girl kind of took the hint, and it de-escalated. Well, here she is at this wedding, and quite tipsy, right as we're sitting down, and like appetizers are coming out. And she comes up to me, and literally this is what she says to me. This is why I bring it up, because it's relevant to you all. She goes, you seem like a nice person, but I hate your fans. Which is a hell of a thing. That's like, she didn't yell at me, she yelled at you guys. I was like, oh, okay. And I have no idea who this lady is. I pieced together afterwards. My wife's not there. She's off with other people. So I'm just sitting at a table with like 2 people I know, and then 2 people I've just met that evening. And this girl, like when someone's really drunk, they're just like up on you, like too close, no personal space. So she's just like leaning up on. And I'm like, okay. She's like, wait, what do you think of that? And I was like, yeah, I hate them too. I just take their money. That's all. She's like, good. And her boyfriend's like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, it's not your fault, man. I assume he's not Republican, based on her prior comments. So then she stumbles away. Okay, whatever. I didn't care. The night goes on, fine. Oh, the one other thing about being an old man, um, the like this is anywhere now. Like you go out to a bar. There's a couple bars in the town that I still kind of live in, and you know, once in a while, friends from college will come back and go out to the bar, and I don't know if it's because I'm getting old or if it was always the case and I just didn't care because I was an alcoholic, was just drinking and didn't give a shit. But like I can't hear what people are saying because the music's too loud. And this wasn't like the DJ wasn't like crazy. It wasn't like we were just listening to who was it that did the halftime show there? Kendrick Lamar, you know. There's songs I recognized, but I still you can't hear. So it's kind of like I'm gonna go to the lobby. Some of my friends told me out so you can hear a little better. So then like we were out in the sort of the hallway in this nice facility. So that the DJ music wasn't right in you, and we're just sitting at a little table that's out there they had set up, and I'm talking to a friend of mine who is quite apolitical. Like he's just like, I don't care about politics at all. He doesn't want to talk about it. Fine. So we're just sitting there and shooting the shit about whatever. In fact, I believe we are talking about movies that were potentially coming out that we like. And here comes our friend, you all's friend again, who hates my audience. Here she comes again. And she's just like, well, I want you to explain to me why you like Trump. Why you'd vote for Trump. And you too. And points at my friend who's like, I don't even think votes. And I'm like, huh? And she's like, you need to tell me right now. And I was just like, I'm going to go get a drink. And my friend's like, yeah, I'm going to go to the bathroom. And then like the 2 or 3 other people that were around the table were all like, yeah, we're going to go somewhere too. And she's like, wait, don't leave. I'm trying to talk to you. And I just left. And so then a mutual acquaintance of us came up. And the night's sort of wrapping down there. And they were like, oh, I saw that girl kind of, whatever her name is, give you the business again. And I was like, I just want to let you know, that's strike 2. There will not be a strike 3. Because if she had said that shit again, I was going to lose my mind. I'm trying to be polite because I am at someone else's wedding. It's their day. I don't want to ruin their event. But I'm tired of that shit. She is on notice. That's the way to put it, Taylor. I'm so tired of that shit. I'm so tired of it. And I hope that culturally we are moving beyond that. We lived in a culture where the mainstream narrative was so impactful that people think that they could just walk up to you and say, Trump's a piece of shit, Republicans are pieces of shit, and you're a piece of shit if you are one. At a wedding, at a funeral, at a dinner, at a bar mitzvah, at a child's birthday party. I liked it before then when you sort of didn't talk about religion and politics. That's what I liked when you're out in a group. Now, the nature of this is a lot of my friends are very left-leaning, and a lot of times I'll end up at events that they're at, and they know I do a show. But you still expect not to be accosted when you're at a sort of public event like that. If it was my wedding, I would have said, please, levy all the criticisms you want. I'll sit here and call you a stupid bitch right now. I don't care. Actually, I wouldn't have, because my wedding was my wife's wedding, and I didn't want to ruin it for her. But if it was my birthday party or something, then I didn't care. But it's not. It's my friends, plural, that are getting married. I don't want to ruin the day for them by having a big argument at this fancy wedding. I just despise that arrogance. I absolutely despise it. And I think it's a society more and more people are waking up to like, no, you don't get to do that. It was like with the assassination attempt at Trump, and you had like Tenacious D, you had not Jack Black, but his partner. What's his partner's name? Kyle. And Tenacious D, where they're on stage and he's like, oh, yeah, too bad that shooter didn't have a better aim. Yeah, those days are done. Those days where you've controlled the culture so much that it's just the norm to be like, well, clearly everyone who's even remotely moral hates Trump and hates Republicans. We're done with that shit. Done with it. I'll be polite. I'll be the bigger person because I don't want to ruin an event for someone else. But I'm not putting up with that shit in public settings anymore. Done with it. So if that girl's watching whose name I don't remember, go fuck yourself. You're lucky that we were at a wedding of a mutual acquaintance. I were to tell you how I really felt about you. And I assure you, dumb fucking bitch, that if we actually would have a discussion about why I like Trump and why you despise him, that I would blow you out of the fucking water, just like 99.9% of all the fucking ridiculous lefties that feel that they have some moral high ground against me or against other people that support Trump or Republicans. So how about that, bitch? I hope you saw that, fuckhead. Maybe I'll get to see her this weekend. Maybe she'll be at the Monster Truck Jam and I won't feel as generous as I did last week. So tired of this shit. So tired of it. Like you're morally superior. Probably a Destiny fan. Consent, what's that? So tired of it. Ridiculous. Another thing that I want to address. So I saw some clips of me going viral of my discussion on Darius's panel the other night, or Process, or whoever the hell's panel it was. I'll briefly explain. If you go back last Thursday, I did a 3-hour live stream, and then I did like a 2 or 3 hour panel, most of it revolving around the left-wing streamer Destiny and sort of the morality behind what went out, but sort of branched out into a few other things. Some of the people on there I enjoyed, others, there was no one I really disliked. But the whole thing was set up strange. It started late. I thought it was a one-on-one discussion, and it ended up being a panel thing. And then I found out that, I guess my name had been bandied around as like a right-winger to debate, because this is like a left-wing circle thing. That's fine. I'll debate, whatever. But whatever. That's sort of what was going on. It started late. It was a panel. I don't know. But it went fine once we got going. However, there was one thing that was strange. It was through Discord. And I noticed right out of the gate, a pet peeve of mine is I don't like when I'm streaming with people and their model of streaming and getting viewerships is we're going to have some OnlyFans light type chick on here with a low cut top shaking her ass for views. I don't care for that. I don't care if that's what you want to do on your show. I don't want to see it on my channel. I don't want to see it. Sorry. I can contain myself. I don't need, if I'm trying to hear drama content or historical content or cultural or political content, I don't need a half-nude chick dancing to get me to view. And of course, that's what this panel was about. Now, I did not catch the lady's name, and the entire time I was in the panel, she was there and didn't say a word. I made a comment when I started talking and I saw her start dancing around. I was like, what is this? And they were like, well, if you don't like it, you could just right click and you can take the video up, which I didn't know that was a possibility, by the way, on Discord. So I'm happy to have learned that and learned something. So I just went in and right clicked on her screen and just her video went away. But the screen caps that people have of me from other people's feeds was I'm talking, this chick shaking her ass, whatever. So it's kind of humorous. You'll see and you'll be like, oh, Rob's talking, this chick's twerking. I didn't see it. I saw the beginning and people were like, ooh, Rob was impressed. He was like, what is this? Couldn't keep his train of thought. No, I wasn't impressed. I was more like disgusted. Disgusted's not even the word. I'm not saying she was unattractive or anything like that. I just find it pathetic. Now I understand why shithead lefties that don't have any sort of original thoughts or ability to rope people in sans being connected to someone like Destiny or talking about drama about him, I understand. And they full on admitted, oh, she doesn't talk. We just have her here so that the viewers have something to look at. I know why that would be their model, but it's not my model. I don't need it. So there you go. If you saw any videos of me from other people's feed and it was like, why was Rob on some random stream talking about drama while some chick basically twerked the whole time? There you go. I didn't see that chick twerking more than the first couple of seconds. By the way, I think it's funny too, like sort of the conversation we're having of like the idea of consent and Destiny objectifying women, and then the whole time we got this going on. Not that it's the same. If you want to have OnlyFans type girls on shaking their ass for your video, as long as everyone consents, that more power to you. I don't care, but it's just funny. We're having a very serious conversation as some chick shakes their ass. Good stuff. So, There you go. That was that's what you missed. If you wonder what Rob was up to for the weekend, there we go. It was very elegant. You're right, Cody. Very elegant. So that leads us to today, the politics of today. What's going on? Well, is anyone surprised that judicial activism was on the menu? Of course not. I'll be honest, I didn't take the time to go through all, 4 or 5 of the temporary restraining orders and judge interventions. Everything from Trump's appointees, even the people that were confirmed through Senate, aren't allowed in the offices of some of the places where this money is going to look at. So the head of the Treasury is not allowed to look at the things in his own office, along with anyone from DOGE, etc. To you must put up on official government websites things about trans medical options for children and everything in between. Is anyone surprised that these sorts of things are occurring? I'm not. Of course, it was baked in. Is there anyone, and just let me know in the chat if you agree with me. It is my firm belief going into the 2020 election that many people in prestigious fields, whether it be academia, politics, media, though we say they're prestigious, that's sort of facetious on my part, actively wanted riots to occur and actively wanted people to suffer under lockdowns and harm the economy because they saw that is helping Donald Trump lose. Do you believe me? That's what I believe. I believe, for example, that mayors in Democrat-controlled cities wanted to allow the riots to occur. I believe that they wanted lockdowns to be painful for people. Also, it could be blamed on Trump. Does anyone else believe? We got at least 2 that seem to be suggesting they believe that. If you believe that, what do you think they would stop at? If they're willing to go that far, you don't think they're willing to have activist judges file injunctions, file restraining orders? Is anyone surprised at this? Some of the people in Congress allegedly knew that Iran was having assassination teams go after Trump while they called for Trump's security detail to be removed. Of course, then we had 2 assassination attempts. You surprised then that they have judges doing this? None of this shocks me whatsoever. This is the least of what they're going to do. This is just step 1. Very benign. Very benign. You surprised that people are leaking into the press about where ICE raids are going to occur? Accusation is it could be coming directly from the FBI. Does that shock you? I saw someone put on X that I follow, and this is absolutely true, the old Solzhenitsyn quote that I say all the time. We know they're lying. They know they're lying. They know we know they're lying, and yet still they lie. We've known for years of the corrupt money siphoning that goes through Congress. We know that it goes to these non-governmental organizations that push a bunch of shit that is antithetical to what me and many other conservatives and populists believe. We know that there are kickbacks that are given. We know that Congress people go and they get salaries of hundreds of thousands of dollars and they leave multimillionaires. We know it. And so now, when people are going in and saying, okay, we're going to look into this, are you surprised? Thanks so much, Drew, for the membership. Cheers, Roberto. Thank you. I appreciate it. Is anyone surprised? No, we know it. We all know it. But they're still going to say, I don't see any evidence and Trump shouldn't be allowed to look at it. The court said he's not allowed to look. And it's a constitutional crisis that Trump and DOGE wants to look into this. Well, that's terrible. How dare you want to look into fraud and waste? That's ridiculous. That's where we're at. I'd love to see a Venn diagram of the people that are saying that Trump and DOGE wanting to look into fraud is a constitutional crisis, and we have to accept what all these lower court judges say. They're not allowed to look into it anymore. That also said, the Supreme Court's corrupt and we need to pack the court if Democrats win. That's what AOC said. She said we shouldn't even listen to the court decisions. Elizabeth Warren suggested packing the courts. Chuck Schumer was so upset about the Dobbs decision that he said Brett Kavanaugh had reaped the whirlwind. Then people blatantly against the law went and protested after that decision got leaked, which, by the way, no one was ever held accountable for it leaking, which in itself is an unprecedented action that, if you're really concerned about an independent judiciary, should have scared the shit out of you. Where are the Democrats? Where are the left-wing lawyers like Pisco that were furious about the leaking of the Dobbs decision? Well, you want to know where he was? When I talked to him about this and how people were blatantly protesting against the law outside of Supreme Court justices' homes, trying to get them to reverse the decision, he said, well, maybe that's free speech. I don't know. Then there was an assassination attempt against Kavanaugh. Remember that? Oh, and what the left will say is, yeah, that's bad. We condemn that. Anyways, constitutional crisis. Joe Biden ignored the courts when it came to student loan forgiveness. Actually, Rob, he didn't. Here's what happened. Joe Biden tried to forgive people's student loans, and then when the Supreme Court rejected that, he went through other avenues that were different and not in the exact way the Supreme Court said, and tried to forgive those loans again, which also was unable to be done because of the courts. Right, well, Trump's not ignoring the courts. He's just looking through other avenues to get through the court decision that was said. Cool, let's send it to the Supreme Court, right? I'm supposed to listen to the American Bar Association wag their finger. Oh my God, Trump has people trying to stop payments of all this fraudulent shit that the American people don't want. That's a constitutional crisis. Any independent court, no matter how small in this country, should be able to shut that down. And also, congratulations, Joe Biden, for passing the 28th Amendment through a post on X. Because the American Bar Association, when Biden put out that tweet, hey, the 28th Amendment's passed, they were like, yep, sounds good. That's how serious they are when it comes to the sanctity of the legal system and the judicial system. Maybe I'll take what they say with a grain of salt. How many people that are saying you can't attack the courts, you got to listen to the courts, do you think if this goes to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court rejects this, are going to say, well, the courts have spoken. They're the law of the land. Anyone criticizing them is a danger to our democracy. How many? You know damn well what's going to happen. Judge after judge after judge is going to stymie every little thing that the Trump administration wants to do. The same judges that had no problem with the executive going off all half-cocked willy-nilly under the Biden administration, the Obama administration. Like, you know how the Constitution's pretty clear that Congress is the only one with the power to declare war? When's the last time that's happened? And yet I don't recall judicial activist judges all around this country intervening when it came to W. Bush, Obama, Biden, even Trump. When it came to war, but auditing the government, oh boy. So let me get this straight, by the way. Here's one of the things we know about USAID. And again, if you want a bigger picture in all of this with receipts, go to Mike Benz's channel. So Mike Benz will show you the receipts, and this has been admitted. USAID will go into different countries and it'll do all sorts of funding. It will fund artists. It'll fund entertainers. It'll fund clergy people. It'll fund media people. And yes, it will fund prosecutors and judges. All in an attempt to move the legal system, culture, and politics of a country to a direction that's more hospitable to the United States. Not me and you, but the leadership of the United States. But when they're funding organizations in this country that look like they're doing the exact same thing, no, they're just buying products. That's all it is. There's nothing shady to see here. They're not trying to influence U.S. politics in a way that they want. That's how gullible they think you are. By the way, we know this is effective in other countries, but not here, right? It wouldn't be effective here. Wouldn't help shift the culture here. Wouldn't help shift the legal system here. Well, Chief, many of the people that are having meltdowns are indirectly getting money, or they benefit politically and culturally from the people that are getting money. Khalil, thanks for the $10, man. Says, here's to a great year for America and the NOR Regiment. Praise be to the Space King Trump, Elon, and his Wiz kids. Thanks, Khalil. That's what all of this gnashing of the teeth and screaming's about. So when you see them screaming, there's a constitutional crisis, like, think of what they're saying. Well, Rob, are you really okay? Are you really okay with so many unelected people having access to your personal data? No, that's why I like the audits. Because right now, Washington's ran by unelected bureaucrats that have access to my personal data. I've been pissed about it for years. Where have you all been? You're worried about unelected bureaucrats now? We had a vegetable for president for 4 years. Who was running shit? Who was it? Oh, you didn't care? You didn't care then. Think of the system they've set up. Unelected bureaucrats exist for the benefit of them and their allies. They push culture and politics and the legal system in the way that all of these people want. And then when you say, okay, the American people don't like that, and we're going to have transparency about where all this money's going, and we're going to stop this money going for those sort of events, they say, no, you can't do that. You can't have independent people go in. It has to be the people that are already there, that are in on the grift. That would be like if a prison's accused of torturing prisoners, and you're like, oh, okay, we're going to send in an agency to see, and they say, no, you can't do that. It has to be people from the prison looking into it. You can't have someone outside USAID looking at USAID. It has to be people with inside USAID. But we're saying that they're incompetent and corrupt. Yeah, but it has to be them or it's corrupt. That's what's going on. Some of these court decisions are so nonsensical. The Secretary of Treasury is not allowed to look at the own financing within his own department. Is an argument that they seem to be making. It looks like now a second judge has clarified, no. We're going to allow the Secretary of Treasury, etc. to look. But the initial order, it seems to be, someone reached out to me and said, is this saying that? And I was like, dude, I haven't had time to read, but it appears. And now that we've had a second judge weigh in and say, well, we have to allow that person there. What's the argument here? Any district judge anywhere in the country, anytime any president or directs any executive agency, hey, let's stop sending this amount of money there. It's like, nope. Or they direct anyone, hey, can we change the website? We have different information on an incoming pandemic or a medical field that we think's been hostile. Nope. If one judge dislikes it, they say, no, sorry, you can't do it. We're going to put a restraining order on that. You can't, Mr. President. Sorry. That's what we're going to do? Is that how it'll fly, by the way? When a Democrat's president, that's how we're going to do it? Let's say Trump, after 4 years, gets 80% of the bureaucratic workforce to quit, and it's left with people that are 80% pro-Trump. Then let's say Trump loses, but he's directed a bunch of U.S. aid payments and a bunch of funding to the NRA and the Daily Wire. You're telling me that Democrats are going to be like, well, that money must continue, and the incoming Kamala administration or whoever is the candidate, they're not allowed to look into it. They can't send their independent people. That'd be corruption. That's what you're telling me their stance would be. It's a joke. We all know it's a joke. They're full of shit. They don't care about corruption. Laugh at their face. Laugh at them. They don't give a shit. They don't. Many of them wanted to pack the court. That's how little they give a shit. They screamed how corrupt the Supreme Court was for saying that there's any kind of presidential immunity. I saw many Democrats say, well, we tried it through the legal system and now someone tried to assassinate Trump. Can you blame them? There's nothing legally we can do. Remember the biggest left-wing streamer I deal with, that's when he said, they've basically made Trump God King. There's nothing we can do. That's how corrupt the courts are. But we have to trust these lower-level courts implicitly. It's a constitutional crisis. Now what's going on is there's a temporary restraining order. There's arguments going forth about how to comply with it. The next step would be an injunction, which would have more teeth. Trump has publicly said that he will comply with any orders and try to appeal them as soon as possible. I think what's likely to happen is if we get to the injunction phase, from what I was reading, it's likely that the Supreme Court will have no choice but to then pick up the situation. Many of these cases are so outlandish and so expansive that it would literally ruin the independence of the executive administration agency. And I think the Supreme Court will be forced to rule on just how nonsensical this shit is. That's my guess. I could be wrong. I'm no lawyer. I do know that left-wing lawyers that I have dealt with, like Bisco, that were so confident about things like the Colorado Supreme Court decision that kept Trump off. Yeah, that went to the Supreme Court and was overturned on a 9-0. Because I guess MAGA justices? Is that what Sotomayor's about? But he knows what he's talking about, trust him. Then what will they say? Oh, I guess we have to respect the court's decision. Of course not. File more court cases. Do everything you can. Laugh at these people. Meanwhile, none of them have even expressed one iota of interest in like, well, wait a minute. Is there fraud? Is there waste? None of them. Trump's corrupt. Trump's dictator. They said 57 million went to condoms in Gaza, but actually it's 30 million to condoms in Mozambique. It's a lie. They said that they paid Politico. That's a lie. Yes, they did pay them, but it was for a very important service. This is my favorite on the Politico story. Oh yeah, Rob? Well, here's Marjorie Taylor Greene using tax money to buy from Politico Pro. Yeah, she fucking sucks too. Her office sucks too. And pissed away that money to go to an agency that hates me and half this country. And? Oh, I'm sorry. Did you think that I only reserved my ire for stupid fucking Democrats? My bad. Let me make it clear. Let me be a little more clear. Now you're seeing career Republicans in the House and Senate coming out going, wow, the evidence of fraud that's being, so much fraud and wasteful spending that it's looking like. Fuck you! Where have you been? What'd you do? There have been good people. Massey, Rand Paul, some others. But all these Johnny-come-latelys, Lindsey Graham, how many of these people voted for those fucking omnibus bills over and over that were thousands of pages that they never read? Well, we have to fund the FBI, and we have to renew the FISA process because otherwise they'll shut down the government and we can't pay for veterans' health care. So we have to do all this. Fuck you. These Republicans have as much of a vested interest in this corruption not be outed as the Democrats, and screw them all. The most charitable viewing of it would be because they'll look incompetent because they haven't done anything for decades. Even when they controlled the presidency, the House, and the Senate, they haven't done anything to cut back this spending and to out this corruption. A less charitable but more likely scenario is that's because a lot of them were getting kickbacks for their loved ones, their associates, etc. So they don't want that corruption outed. Yes, there are stories that should appall all of you about money going to trans shows in fucking Iran or wherever. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. How about the money going to NGOs to bring in illegal immigrants? Oh, by the way, a platform that Republicans warned Trump not to talk about in 2016. Prior to Trump, which Republicans were doing a lot to stop illegal immigration? How about the fact that it looks like our tax dollars were going to fund the Wuhan lab working on coronavirus, and then that was used as the excuse to lock us all down, and then that was used as the excuse to massively print the money printers, which was then used as the excuse for billions of dollars of fraud to occur in things like PPP loans, that also happened to devastate small businesses in this country, which ended up being beneficial to many of the large businesses in this country. You see how they create the problem and then say, but we have to fix the problem, which creates another problem, which presents them with a solution that again benefits themselves? You see that chain of events? But now they're like, we're shocked. We're shocked that what's this, fraud? This is the first I'm hearing of it. Fraud, you say? Incompetence? Waste? No. In our government? The most god-awful, disgusting bureaucracy, huge bureaucracy in the history of the world? Fraud, you say? Waste? No. Well, I'll tell you this, say the Democrats. What we can't do is audit it. We can't have that. Nope. Instead, we'll wait until a month before the budget is due, and then we'll say, oh, we couldn't come to agreement. Omnibus, emergency omnibus, continuing resolution to fund again. Sorry, no one's got time to read it. It's going to be 1,500 pages, but there you go. And then when you're like, well, who spent $50 million to this non-governmental organization that brought illegal immigrants in the country? Republicans, Democrats will go, oh, I wasn't, huh? What? This is the first we're hearing about it. I saw a suggestion someone had. It's absolutely true. Every single one of the abuse, fraud, waste, etc. that gets outed, I hope that if there's an argument this was voted on, whoever sponsored that, their name gets attached to that fraud. So the American people can see, oh, you're upset about $200 million of your dollars going to this organization to facilitate illegals coming into your country? Well, Senator Langford suggested that. There you go. It's all so tiresome. I saw Bill Maher talking about this the other day. Screw Bill Maher. But it happened to be on the hotel I was at as I was sitting in the lobby. What is it, Saturday night? Yeah, after that wedding. And he kept saying, like, well, I'm not saying that fraud and waste, that we shouldn't go after it in some areas, but the way in which it's happening, it's wholesale. How are you going to do it not wholesale? What's the idea here? The exception's always the rule. It's the same shit with illegal immigration. But Rob, but MAGA, but Republicans. This here's Pedro. Pedro comes from Venezuela, and he's a political prisoner. The government of Venezuela wants to execute him and his family. Please let him in. Okay. And here's Pedro's 50 cousins and all of their wives and children. And from being an extension of Pedro, they'll want to execute him as well. Okay, I guess. And here's 10,000 people that share the political ideology. And they too, and all their families. I don't know, it's getting a little, but you already let Pedro in. Why stop now? It's the old SNL skit I like, the early boy. Once you give an inch, they're just like, we're going to go further. Let me bring in your mail. Please, I'd like to bring in your mail. Let me sleep in your bed. You're already letting me bring in the mail. Let me move in with me. You already let me sleep in your bed. Sorry, no. You've been so corrupt with the American tax dollar that a whole slate, other than the very bare bones things that people, the benefits that we've agreed through things like Social Security, Medicare, that aren't fraudulent, they should be kept. Things like WIC benefits, things like that. Yes, payments that go out for things like aid packages, etc., to disaster relief. Okay. Other than that, done. What about this very important cancer research to the University of Fuck Trump? What about that? No, fuck you. The University of Fuck Trump should have thought about that before their entire agenda was fuck Trump and white men and Christians. Fuck you. How about that? How about not one red cent for any university in this country? How about that? That sounds good. How about that? Again, one of the things that I wish will happen will be if we're told, no, Congress said that this money has to go to certain things, then I hope NGOs start appearing left and right that are right-wing MAGA NGOs. Yes, thanks so much, God's favorite aunt. Thanks for being a member. We're an NGO to help with cancer. And all we do is donate to MAGA Republicans, and we push cultural issues like pro-life over and over and over again. Send all the money to them. And then watch the Democrats fucking piss and whine and moan. Fuck them. So maybe we could have a conversation with, how about our tax dollars stops going to any of that bullshit? How about that? No? You insist that Musk? Cool. Then it'll go to people we like. How about that? You've had your opportunity for 30, 40 years. Now we'll take it for 30, 40. How's that sound? Meanwhile, it looks, I don't know if it's true, so you have to bear with me, but some scuttlebutt I've been reading, I try to at least get two sources of people that I don't think are completely insane. I'm reading that it seems that Zelensky's suggesting that they may be willing to cede some land in possible negotiations with Russia. That's fantastic news. That's likely going to be what it takes, amongst other things, for this conflict to end. Why? Because Russia's approaching it from a position of strength. It's the exact opposite of the Israel-Palestine situation. Israel approaches those negotiations through a position of strength. They're stronger. That means the terms will be more favorable to them. Same's true with Russia when it comes to Russia-Ukraine. It's the way it is. It's what I told people like Dylan Burns 2 years ago would be the outcome. How many bodies do we need to pile up before we get to the end, which is, oh, okay, there's going to have to be some negotiation where Ukraine's going to have to give shit up. Ironically, if the reports are true that there was an initial peace talks proposed years ago, and it turns out that people like Boris Johnson intervened and told Zelensky no, then the only net benefit of that has been Ukrainian bodies piling up. I guess, and Russians. Great. Maybe good for Boris Johnson. Maybe good for people at the U.S. State Department. Not so good for the people of Ukraine. Which is exactly what I said. The biggest losers in this war drawing out were always going to be the people of Ukraine. But I was called anti-Ukrainian for adapting that point of view. Isn't it funny how it always works that way? Just like I was anti-black when I was against riots that were burning down businesses and homes in black cities. No, Rob, you're racist. You're anti-black. You should be cheering on these riots. Cool. Or remember when I was a racist against Chinese people? Because I said, it looks like the United States funded this lab in Wuhan where this virus most likely came from. That's racist against Chinese people, they said. The anti-racist position is Chinese people are all backwards heathens that ate bats and pangolins at wet markets without washing their fucking hands. That's the non-racist position. You notice how it always works like that for them? They like to moralize and grandstand on these empty platitudes, but the very people that they're claiming to have an affinity for are worse off because of their fucking moralizing and grandstanding. Yeah, I wonder if Sanso ever paid up that debt he owed me, huh? Remember all those years ago where he said the Wuhan theory was debunked? You understand what debunked means, right? Proven to be false. Now our intelligence communities are saying, yeah, that's most likely where it came from. Far from debunked. I believe I read that Trump's envoy came back from Russia with another U.S. prisoner. Is that true? Can anyone confirm that? I was only able to find one article that suggested that. But is it true that Trump's team today brought home? That is the one part of the Israel-Palestine conflict that I do think the United States has involvement in. If our citizens are being held hostage, we have a right to be involved. Now, there was a citizen of the United States that was being detained in Ukraine, where he died in prison. Gonzalo Lira. That should have been the last time Ukraine got $1 from us, until they had some accountability for that action. American teacher Mark Fogel. Hopefully, Trump's able to get back even more. I believe there's at least one journalist that's there. Where was Biden on that? I guess Mark Fogel wasn't a WNBA player that kneels during the national anthem. So fuck him, right? Right? We had to give up the Merchant of Death, which, by the way, I supported and still do. We should be trying to bring United States citizens back. He was caught with weed too. Oh, well, there you go. Even more of an apples to apples comparison. Haven't heard many of the shrieking Democrats talking about that, though, huh? But Rob, when Brittany Griner came back, were you praising Biden? Yes, I was, much to the chagrin. Remember, I had a debate with Aircraft Sparky on it. I saw that Trump said that. I hope that cooler heads prevail and we don't end up with attacks in Gaza. But if there's any potential justification for our involvement, Sparky said we shouldn't have released the Merchant of Death to save Griner. She broke the law. She should have known what she was doing. I'm against sending troops to the ground in Gaza. But if it were to happen, if there were bombs dropped or something, and it is, we're going to bomb you until every United States citizen is released, I'm at least open to the debate on that. Once the U.S. citizens are released, that's that. We shouldn't be there. We shouldn't be sending money to Israel, shouldn't be sending money to Hezbollah, Hamas, Iran, Palestine, period. Israel's tough and buff, right? They can handle it. And if they can't, maybe they ought to consider a more peaceful negotiation. That's how I look at the situation. So I hope that, as far as I'm concerned, other than the stupid meme coin bullshit, the worst thing that Trump has said is about owning the Gaza Strip. No, fucking terrible. We'll see. Is it a negotiation tactic? We'll see. But if we legitimately try to go in militaristically, even if it's under the name of like UN peacekeeping style, it's a huge fucking mistake. And Trump ought to be criticized for it. Now, do I think that he's doing far more good with the attempts to audit all of this shit than the bad of that? Yeah. But it doesn't mean for my audience I won't call out when I think Trump's doing things that I disagree with. If some lefty wants to come in and go, the constitutional crisis, and oh my God, my biggest fear is that in 2020, what if Trump weaponizes the DOJ to go after his opponents, and what if Elon bans people off X that are left-wing? And my answer to those people is, fuck you. I don't give a shit what your opinion is in the least bit. Now understand there's different tiers of this. The type of person that's watching content like this, I put on this tier. Like let's start. Let's start at the bottom, right? And let's do a little. How about a little drawing? If I can find a pen. Of course, I can't find a pen. I'm in an office and I can't find a pen. How is that possible? Now it's like I could just do this without the drawing. But now it's like, I have to do it. Here's a marker, a highlighter. Oh, the highlighter's not going to work. Oh, for God's sakes. I'm going to find a pen. I'll be right back. Only me. People ask me about my job all the time. And I can't talk a lot about the specifics of what I do because it's healthcare and there's HIPAA standards. But I'll give you a little clue. One of the things that I do at work, we like to go fishing. So before I found a pen, I found a bobber. I think I found a pen. So let's hope it writes. Of course, it's not going to write. There we go. This is like tier 1, right? This is people who know almost nothing about politics. Don't get it twisted, this doesn't mean they're dumber. Most of these people are objectively smarter than me and every one of you watching. You wanna know how I know that? Because they're not pissing their time away watching someone like me on a Wednesday night. And what's even worse than watching someone like me is being me. So those people are smart, most of them. Those are people that are working 9 to 5s. They might lean Republican, Democrat, whatever. But most of the time, they're not really involved in politics, right? I'll be incredibly polite to those people when talking about politics because they just don't know. They just don't know. They have other things that they're occupying their time with. You might say, well, people should be informed. To some degree, I agree with you. But I also understand it. I understand there are more important things than being involved in all of these political stories. Like how much, if you're spending your time this week reading thoroughly the temporary restraining orders by all of these judges against Trump, when you know at the end of the day, these are just a bunch of judicial activists that are doing whatever they can. Hashtag resist Trump. You'd be better off spending your time playing video games. Then next here we have are people like you all. And this is people that consume, in fact, that's not even you. This is people that consume traditional media to some degree. So maybe it's people that watch the 5 o'clock news. Maybe they'll tune in to an episode of Maddow or Sean Hannity or something like that. Then the next tier is people that are more involved in politics. So they're listening to like podcasts or people like me, or they're listening to like talk radio. So they're a little more informed. Then you got the people like me, or well, I guess one tier below me, are like the people that are spending a lot of time on social media posting stuff about politics. Then you got the next tier would be people like me that are streamers, or people that are knocking door to door, or people that are going to their local Democrat or Republican meetings. Then you have the people involved in DC in some way, like the mainstream media, people that are being paid by nonprofits, etc., etc. And lastly, you have the politicians themselves and maybe the people above him, right? Your culpability and my patience for you lessens the higher up we go up the list. So if you're this person, And you're like, hey, Rob, what's up with this Elon dude? He's a billionaire. Like, was he like, can we trust him? I'll do my best to respond to that in the most forthright way possible. But if you're this person, let's say me, that's my tier, and maybe Econoboy, and you say, Rob, what I'm concerned with, the thing I'm concerned with the most is, what if 2028, it's obvious that if Trump enacts the policies he wants, the Republicans will lose horribly, and so when they lose horribly in 2028, my biggest fear is, what if Trump refuses to concede the election? My answer is, fuck you. You were not interested in the corruption against Trump for 8 years. You didn't care, or you supported it. I don't care now that you're fearful that Trump will be corrupt when, hypothetically corrupt, when you had nothing to say about the actual corruption that occurred. I don't care. I don't care what someone that would mock someone like me if I said, George Soros is funding an awful lot of prosecutors in this country that are intentionally allowing violent criminals out. And they said, that's Soros. Everything Soros. So these are all the boogeyman Soros that are now like, oh my God, Elon Musk, no! Oligarchs involved. We need to do something. Bernie Sanders out there. We now have oligarchs that are running the country. And yes, for the past 8 years, where it was clear that the majority of the billionaire class were supporting the Democratic Party, I did not say word one about this, but now I will make it my issue again. Yeah, fuck you, Bern. Fuck you. Easy to take principled stances when it aligns with your political goals. More difficult to be principled when it goes against your political goals. Didn't hear you calling out the Democratic Party much for that. Didn't hear you calling out Zuckerbucks in 2020. Didn't hear you calling out social media companies censoring conservatives. Didn't hear that. Taking Trump off Twitter. Missed that, Bern. So that's my list of Rob, does that apply to Elon? So Taylor M. This would be me here, and you're someone who's here regularly, so that puts you one tier down from me. So I'll say, instead of go fuck yourself, I'll say, I'm not interested in talking to you about this. How's that? I don't care what you think. Bring someone in that isn't a shithead loser like you that did nothing but defend the corruption of the previous administration, and I'll answer them. I'm not going to answer you. But Rob, what about Elon? Oh no, I have an answer. I certainly have an answer. Just not for you. You don't deserve an answer. Can you show me your post you were making about Zuckerberg? Or about Soros? Or about the litany of other billionaires? Can you show me those posts? If not, go fuck yourself. Oh, I'm sorry. Go screw yourself. You're not quite at my level. So. Fair enough? I just don't care. Oh, so you're saying that you don't have an answer. You're saying you don't have an answer. I don't care that you say you're not a lib. I don't care. You might as well be a lib. You're a Trump-hating, TDS-suffering person that cheered for or ignored corruption against him. So I don't care what your opinion is. Vita, thanks for the $2. Where does someone like Scott Pressler fall on that list? Scott Pressler would be at my level or higher. He would be higher, so he should know more. Imagine for a moment that we are reading a fictional story. I haven't read a lot of... What do I want to go with here? Harry Potter or Star Wars? Someone... Let's do Star Wars. Yay! Star Wars, everyone. Okay, Brothers Karamazov. Now you're testing me. Christianity good. Okay. We're doing Star Wars. Harry Potter loses. So, I've seen the original 3 Star Wars, episodes 4, 5, and 6. I've seen episodes 1, 2, and 3. And I think I've seen episode 7. I never saw 8 or 9, and as far as I know, I haven't seen any of the movies other than 7 that have came out, like Rogue One or anything. I don't think I've seen any of those. Or TV shows, nothing. Okay? So it's basically just going to be, my knowledge is basically just from episode 1 to episode 6. And the very first Star Wars that I saw was the original Star Wars. And it starts off, if I remember, they're on some spaceship and Darth Vader and the stormtroopers come in and they're looking for Princess Leia, right? And where was Princess Leia? Someone tell me if I'm wrong. She was the princess of a world called Alderaan? Is that correct? Am I getting this right? My lore of Star Wars, not very great. Right? Am I right about this? Alderaan. There we go. See, I'm already impressing myself that I knew this. Right? Now, let's backtrack a little. I also remember from watching the 3 prequels that we had I think it was a galactic senate before it was the Empire, and it was sort of a republic. And there were senators, and they voted on things, and this and that and the other. And I can't remember the specific details, but who would become the central villain, Darth Vader's boss in the originals, Emperor Palpatine, right? He was a senator, correct? He was Senator Palpatine. And he was one of the good guys, only he wasn't. He was really a bad guy, pretending to be a good guy. But he set up these political machinations to basically encourage the Republic to vote to give him power. Did I get all that right? So let's go back in time, fictionally, to that moment, where you had, and let's say instead of calling themselves an empire, all of the senators were basically just corrupt. And they were like, we'll leave this dude, Palpatine, run the shit. And he's doing fucked up shit. He's going world to world. The Sith are wiping out the Jedi, and they're killing people, and genocide, and all that good stuff. And then let's say that the world of Alderaan, the royal family of Alderaan, they're rich, they're powerful. They're like, we're gonna look into this. We're gonna start exposing the Senate. Taylor M would be there and go, but Rob, aren't you worried that Princess Leia's just doing that for personal reasons? It's personal reasons. Like, calling out, we don't have time to criticize Palpatine because isn't it true that the royal family of Alderaan perhaps is just doing this for personal reasons, looking into this corruption? So, better to do nothing and just leave Palpatine go. This is a pretty gay analogy, I'll agree with that. That took a long way to get there. But that's what's going on. We have this huge corrupt system that no one's looked into, that both parties at the top level have been part of. All of this waste, huge amounts of money being mismanaged, spent, etc. And the criticism is, but isn't it true that someone like Elon Musk may want to look into this for personal reasons? Suppose that could be true. Yes. Isn't it true that a police officer may have become a police officer so that they could crack skulls for personal reasons? I guess. But if they're taking down the mob, probably something that we should, in the short term, say, that's fine, take down the mob. That's how I feel about your question, Taylor M. Or as I said the other day, yes, I'm worried that Elon Musk and Donald Trump could be personal in nature and corrupt. Just like if I get shot in the chest and I'm bleeding out, I am worried as I'm walking out the door to get to the ambulance that I could stub my toe. It's true. That would be a potential fear of mine. No one likes a stubbed toe. But I'm probably going to be more concerned with the gaping hole in my chest before I say, now wait, before I take each and every step, I must carefully say, is there a possibility of toe stubbing here? Because I'm very fearful. And you're standing there as I'm bleeding out going, instead of helping, you're going, now wait. I know you're in a rush, but let's not focus on that gunshot. What about your toes? Aren't you worried, Rob? Why don't you have a seat there and let's talk about the possibility of stubbing your toes. Then in like 2 or 3 years, we can discuss the possibility of like getting you some help for that gunshot wound in the chest. Oh, what's that? You passed away? Well, at least you didn't stub your toe. Yeah, I don't give a shit. I don't care at all, Taylor M., what people like you think. But isn't it true that Elon could just be into it for personal reasons? Yep. Next. I don't care. Perhaps the Navy SEAL didn't really sign up to be a Navy SEAL to defend our country. Maybe he did it for the government benefits to personally enrich himself. And these people don't give a shit. You think Taylor M was going on left-wing streams asking them, but wait a minute, all these people that are claiming to be against corruption for Trump, maybe they're doing it through personal reasons? You think he was saying that? You think? So what you're saying is the audit can only be done with Elon. That's it. The only person in the world. The only person. No, the audit could have been done for decades and it wasn't. And what it took was someone like Trump that was from outside the system and someone like Elon to get the ball rolling. Now saying, oh, now that everyone's sat on their fucking hands for 50 years and let this happen, now it's time to bring everyone together and see if they can agree on the people to put forth that will be independent to work on this audit. Yeah, fuck all that. They could have did that last year, the year before, 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 the year before. They didn't. Unfortunately, our system was so corrupt. Taylor M, have you ever ran for Congress? Just curious. I did. You know what my chances of winning for Congress was? About 0.00001%. You want to know why? Because I don't have connections and I'm not wealthy. Yes, we've set up a system that means if you're a person who is a normal average person that sees a problem with the representation in this country being corrupt and not giving a shit, you have almost a 0% chance of winning. And if you are in the right situation where you are able to win and you're not connected in that, what you'll find quickly is, even once you're in office, it's almost impossible to get anything done without that sort of influence anyways. And so even when elected, you're not going to be able to get anything done. Who gets things done? Well, the career politicians that have insane amounts of connections, that have an insane amount of people backing them, financially and culturally. Those are the ones that are able to get things done. The people that are in positions of leadership, like Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer, they could get things done. The good person that comes in and says, hey, I might want to do something about this, like let's say Ron Paul, he wanted to audit the Fed. What chance did Ron Paul have? Almost a 0% chance. And we have good people like Rand Paul or Thomas Massey or Chip Roy suggesting that there needs to be halting to this funding, auditing of this funding. They also get next to nothing done. And so what we are forced to have is someone who isn't the most polite, sophisticated person in the world, Donald Trump. Donald Trump had a chance because he was an outside billionaire. The sort of beliefs that you have, or sort of your personality to become a billionaire, many of those personality quirks aren't going to make you a real happy-go-lucky type character. So that's what it's taken. Then when it happens, people like you go, but can't there be someone else? Can't there be someone else? No, there couldn't be, as we saw for the past 50 years. But okay, so it's Trump, but can it be someone other than Musk? No! Who was changing things at places in social media before Musk? Who was it? Show me. Show me what. The guys at Rumble tried it. Remember Parler? Oh, all the app stores decided to take Parler off. Remember that? Payment processors were no longer working through Parler. Rumble was getting similar type treatments. Now it took a billionaire in the form of Elon Musk buying Twitter before things start to change. Gab, that was one, yeah. That's what it took. So yes, I suppose Trump could have said, no, let's not have Elon at DOGE. For whatever reason, he's disqualified from it. Why? What characteristics about Elon, Taylor M, are you like, does it have to be Elon? Can it be someone else spearheading? Who? The problem they have with Elon is that Elon came in and started to out their stranglehold on corruption and control of the narrative. That's why they don't want Elon. Why don't we put, I don't know, Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg? How about Bill Gates? They'd be great. How about Chuck Schumer? Adam Schiff would be pretty good. Liz Cheney? How about one of those people? Conflict of interest. Don't give a shit at all. Don't care. Conflict of interest. How about all the people in Washington that vote for this shit and then get kickbacks? Don Jr., that'd be a conflict of interest. I'd be happy to have Ron Paul, but he's an octogenarian who probably doesn't have the energy or the tenacity to do it. Auditing the Fed would be one thing. Auditing all of this payments going through these benign sort of Byzantine enterprises where payments are going through here, 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 here. Probably not in the wheelhouse of someone like Ron Paul or even Rand Paul. Someone who's worked in payment processing, who has outed sort of wasteful spending and corruption at a place like Twitter, seems to be ideal. The reason that you don't want Elon Musk is because you're afraid Elon Musk will find the corruption. And I know this because you've never spoke about the corruption until someone started to talk about auditing it. PayPal Elon was with. I'm giving Elon way too much credit. What have you done, God's favorite ant? Go ahead. I don't give a fuck, Taylor. You're full of shit. You're not a Ron Paul guy. You're full of shit. You might claim to be a Ron Paul guy. You're not. If you're a Ron Paul guy, you'd have been calling out the corruption against Donald Trump from day one. You haven't. Almost every post you make here is antithetical to Donald Trump and assuming that he's corrupt or that he's bad or something. You're full of shit. You're a virtue signaling sack of shit liar. At least have the dignity to be honest with your bullshit anti-Trump fucking opinions. Don't sit here and bullshit me that all of a sudden you were for outing corruption all this time. Fuck you, you're lying. You're an absolute fucking liar. Why the friendly fire? Because what I'm giving Elon, what credit am I giving Elon? What I'm doing is defending why Elon would be a person that would be someone that should do with this. Elon bought X. I think I said from day one, if you're trying to say that Elon's some savior, you're making the same mistake that you're trying to say about Donald Trump. He's doing this for personal reasons, just like Donald Trump probably has personal motivations for why he's running for office. Unfortunately, at this point, it's going to take independent, wealthy people like that to be able to get things done because the system's so corrupt. That's what it's going to require to be able to do something like this. And so when someone comes in and goes, the problem I have with this is Elon Musk, the problem. And I'm like, well, here's reasons that it had to be someone like Musk. And you say, yes, but you're giving Musk too much credit. Why the friendly fire and calling me out for that? Well, there you go, God's favorite ant. That's why the friendly fire. Go ahead, tell me what your problems are, God's favorite ant, with Elon being there. Go ahead. Let's hear. What's your problems with Elon? Go ahead. Who would you have appointed to lead DOGE? Nah, John Strivez, don't give Elon any credit. God's favorite ant will jump on you. You're giving him way too much credit asking Ron Paul to come in. That's way too much credit. Way too much. All the guys before Elon were doing a great job. They're great. Remember all those audits we had of the Fed and the audits we had of USAID? Mike Benz would have probably been a better person. Oh, well, he's not independently wealthy. I don't care that people have companies that have contracts with government if they're trying to out corruption. Great. And number one, I'm giving Musk too much credit, and your number one reason why is because he has companies that have contracts with government. Next. You sound just like but Trump's hotels. How could Trump be president? He had hotels. People, government employees stayed at the hotels. It can't be Trump. Gotcha, God's favorite ant. Gotcha. That's right. My response to people like you and God's favorite ant's points here is, I don't give a fuck. Fuck you. Yep. You're right. Then the people that work for Elon are the still people that are working for Elon that are doing the audits. Great. So then we could say, hey, God's favorite ant. Everyone else, turn off your video for a minute. God's favorite ant. when I'm saying that I'm not hyperventilating and freaking out like the Democrats because Elon's there and I'm giving reasons why Elon should be a person that's there, what I really mean is the people that are under Elon, they're the real good ones. Elon isn't good. We cool, God's favorite aunt. We cool. No, it's not that you're freaking out. It's that someone is freaking out like Taylor M. and pretty much the entire Democratic Party. When I'm explaining to you why their criticisms are horseshit, your criticism of me is I'm giving Elon too much credit. Even though I've criticized Elon over and 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 over again, I'm still giving him too much credit when I'm talking to someone that says, well, the problem with this whole thing is that Elon, that's the problem. When I'm like, no, here's things that would be good about Elon with it, but that's too much credit for Elon. Maybe you should say, yes, Rob, you're right. Fuck these people. They really don't want the corruption outed. Elon wouldn't have been my first choice. I don't think he's perfect, but fuck him. You're right, Rob. That's what you could say. But instead, we're giving Elon too much credit. Yes, Elon's probably never personally built a rocket ship, true. Elon probably didn't personally do a lot of the shit that made PayPal very successful, true. Elon seems to be someone who's good at getting funding and money and building relationships, that sort of thing. Unfortunately, in the world we exist in today, those skills are oftentimes more important when it comes to obtaining cultural and political power than, the really smart scientist building the engine. He didn't do anything that made PayPal successful. Okay, let's assume you're right. Elon Musk has never done anything, ever. Elon Musk, and he's literally done, in fact, let's assume the worst. Elon Musk personally took a knife to everyone's throat that ever did anything good at any company he was good with and said, I'll take all the credit. If you say a word, I'll slit your throat and everyone involved with you. Let's assume that. He's never done anything good. And your criticism with DOGE is, go ahead. Who would you have running it? Elon's, go ahead. So you're on board with the lefties. Elon's never done anything good. That's the problem with DOGE. Shut it down. Elon shouldn't be running it. Right? Go ahead. Go ahead, God's favorite aunt. He's never done anything. He's never done anything good. He's just a used car salesman. You didn't say shut down DOGE. You just defended the people saying shut down DOGE because Elon's there by saying Elon's no good. Got it. So what's your point again? What's the point of everything you're saying here? Go ahead. So we have someone coming on here and saying the problem's Elon Musk. That's the problem. I'm parroting the fucking Democrats' line here. Elon's the problem. Conflict of interest. Elon, oh my God, it's corrupt. And when I'm arguing why that's stupid, you're giving Elon too much credit. So what's your point here? What's the point you're trying to make here? If I'm not for Elon, I'm not for audits. Okay, Taylor M., can you tell me before DOGE, who were you suggesting do audits? Go ahead. Point me to any social media post you made. Show me one. Just one. Go ahead. Let me, God's favorite aunt. Now I know you're either trolling or you're really fucking stupid. Let me slow it down for you. Democrats are saying DOGE is bad and a threat to democracy, in large part because of Elon. Taylor M. comes in and says, the problem I have with the audits is Elon. I start to talk about why Elon's one of the people that got the ball rolling on audits. And Elon seems to be someone who's been at companies that outed waste before. And you're like, you're giving Elon too much credit. And my criticism of you is I'm arguing with people that want audits shut down because Elon's involved. And I'm saying some good things about Elon. And you're saying I'm giving Elon too much credit. And you're like, yes. And then you're like, but I didn't say end audits. I'm not saying you said end audits. I'm saying you're defending the people saying to end audits because Elon's involved. You got it? Did I slow it down enough for you? I mean, clearly, you're an intellectual juggernaut here, on par, far surpassing Elon Musk. We're not talking past each other. I'm talking directly at you. Directly at you. The Democrats say end DOGE because of Elon. The reality is Democrats want no audits. People come in here and say, I think Elon's bad for this. I say you're full of shit. You didn't want audits before this. Here's reasons that Elon isn't bad. You say, yes, Elon's bad. You give him too much credit. I say that's stupid. I've said over and over things that are wrong with Elon, but I think that I'm arguing against these people, and you saying you're giving Elon credit is just giving them help. You say, I'm not saying end audits. Got it? Sorry, I'm trying to read the chats here. Who would you have put in charge of DOGE? Who would you have? Go ahead. Who do you think was doing a decent job? Who would you have put? Rand Paul. Okay, Rand Paul didn't want the job. Next. Cool. Now what? Rand Paul's a senator. Was he going to resign as Senate to be in charge of DOGE? Can you show me any evidence of that? How would he have the time? Do you think someone doing their full Senate duties would have time to audit each of these agencies one by one? That's what you think? You don't think people would be saying, that's a conflict of interest? It's stupid. I mean, we literally for the first time ever have people at least trying to fucking do any sort of audit, and brainiacs like this are like, but I don't like Elon. I don't like Elon. I could come up. You know who would have been a better pick? If we could have brought Theodore Roosevelt back from a time machine, I think he would have been phenomenal for this. Walk quietly, carry a big stick would have been great. Would have been great for DOGE. Yeah, fuck you. I'm sorry. You people are pathetic. Yes, if it was up to me, Ron Paul would have been president in 2008 and audited the Fed. Didn't happen. Yes, you did ask for something impossible. What you asked for was your utopian vision. If it was me, we would have had Ron DeSantis or maybe even Vivek that was in charge in 2024. It isn't. So when we finally get someone who's actually far surpassed my expectations, especially on this part about auditing this shit, all we get is complaints. But I don't like Elon. I don't like him. I don't like it. So I noticed that when you responded to me, you used hyperbole and saying time travel, and you'll notice if you go through all of the comments I made that I did not use the words time travel. So, checkmate. Yeah, you're right. Hey, God's favorite aunt. You'll notice that I have a very low opinion of your intelligence. Hyperbole is a form of lying. Fair enough. So you're calling me a liar? That's what you're saying, God's favorite aunt? You're calling me a liar? That's what you're saying. You're calling me a liar. Right? That's what you're saying, right? You just called me a liar. Right? Trump uses hyperbole a lot. He's a liar too, right? Yes. Okay. We'll see you, God's favorite aunt. Enjoy your 10-second timeout. That'll teach you. The people that are capable of being elected or of having the connections or wealth to be appointed at things like this aren't always the best people. That's true not just of DOGE, that's true of pretty much any political appointee you can imagine. We don't have the ability to be utopian and say, I'm playing a game like Civilization and I can pick characters out. You should be here, and you should be here, and you should be here. Imagine, for example, that Trump completely outs corruption more than anyone's expectations. Shows how corrupt the media has been, how corrupt much of money going to these NGOs to facilitate illegal immigration, how corrupt lawfare has been against him, other Republicans, etc. Exposes that January 6th was something that was facilitated by the FBI. Exposes all of this, ushering in a golden era of 50 years in this country. Let's imagine that all that happens. And someone like God's favorite aunt, not him, because I know he'll say, you'll notice that I didn't specifically say that. But someone like him going, yeah, but I don't like what Trump did with Trump University, so I think it should have been someone else. I think it should have been someone else. I suppose you're right. I wish that the president right now was someone who was even more articulate than Trump, that was even more principled, and that was more moral. But that person's not going to win. They're not. But that's what I wish. That's what I wish would happen. I wish my neighbor Frank, who fought in Afghanistan, was president. I wish he was. J.D. Vance, I wish he wouldn't have said that Trump was Hitler-esque in the past. So no, not J.D. He's made mistakes too. I wish there was a perfect human that was there. There's not. Now what? You guys would love Frank. I don't know that he would ever come on because of his job and do a video, but Frank's a good guy. It's not going to happen. I don't expect someone perfect. I expect someone who does not have a stake in the investigation doing the investigations. Well, you're not going to get it. And now what? Not happening. So, same criticism will be levied at Trump. That you're making the exact same criticism. Well, Trump appointed Jeff Sessions as his attorney general, but one time, Jeff Sessions was at a dinner and there was a Russian there. So he must recuse himself. And Trump went along with that. Trump said, okay, we'll recuse Jeff Sessions. How'd that work out? There is not a person that Trump could have appointed that the left-wing media wouldn't have found some tenuous connection that there was a conflict of interest. Hell, even if it was someone who never took a dollar from USAID or had a business that was going up against them, they would say that's the conflict of interest. Oh, clearly this person has an axe to grind because they never received this money, so they feel left out. It is nonsensical. It's reminiscent to the extremely pro-life people that were bitterly anti-Trump. Trump appointed the justices that got Roe v. Wade overturned, which was, if you listen to any pro-life activist, the central goal for decades, which they were unable to accomplish. So Trump gets in there, does that, realizes that it's politically a losing issue to say, yeah, I'm for a national abortion ban. And he may not even believe in a national abortion ban. And so the pro-life people cut off their nose despite their faces. Go, I'm going to spend all my time criticizing Trump about that. I don't even know if I'll support him. I don't know. That's who you are right now. Well, he pointed Elon and they're going after all this corruption and it looks like they're finding stuff, but I'd prefer it wasn't Elon. I'd prefer, yeah, me too. I'd prefer it was a much cooler guy that didn't have any businesses that could possibly ever be connected, but also has business knowledge that would be able to fetter out corruption in business. That's what I would want, but that's not what we have. So I'm not going to spend my time arguing about that. I'm not going to defend shitbag anti-Trumpers that are coming on that secretly want DOGE shut down, many of them not so secretly, by complaining about Elon, and then when I push back on why that's stupid and Elon's not this horrible monster that they're saying, you say that I give him too much credit. That's stupid. That's how I feel. But I digress. It's nice to interact with people. So, how'd you like that 10-second ban, motherfucker? Boom! I still like you, God's favorite. And I like Taylor M, despite the fact he's even dumber than you. In a serious note, yeah, it's difficult if you have a business like SpaceX that could be conflicting with NASA that will then be looking at NASA and having input on whether or not NASA should get a budget, etc., etc. You're right. It would ideally be better for someone that wasn't connected to any of that. The problem is it's going to be really difficult to find someone that has no connections whatsoever on a serious space because all of this money is so vast and goes into so many different areas. Like, for example, couldn't you say that RFK has a conflict of interest as well, given his writings and his career mission when it comes to pharmaceuticals? Yeah, you could say that. Anyone who has any successful kind of business whatsoever, if you're talking about looking at the entirety of US funding, well, the US government funds so much shit. Who's going to be in a career field? For example, my field is home health care. Would it surprise you to know that government funding goes into companies like mine? So does that mean I have a conflict of interest? If I would get hired to do some sort of audit of finances? Hypothetically, I may want more or less money going to the company I work for or the rival companies of the company I work for, right? So then you wouldn't want me in charge, because when we get to that part in the books where we're talking about healthcare, I would have a conflict of interest. So no matter what, the people that don't want the audits are always going to say that the person that's appointed to lead the organization that's trying to do the audits has a conflict of interest. Every time. So what do? You just twiddle your thumbs and go, well, we got to look for the one person. Maybe NASA sucks. What have they done lately? Was it NASA that yelled at that dude, made him apologize for wearing the shirt with the women in bikinis on it? Elon may fucking suck. He might totally be there, and it's all a big plot to increase his wallet. I think that Elon probably doesn't care much about the money. I think he still wants to be super rich. So if all of a sudden his businesses take a hit, he might then care about the money. But I think what he cares more about is the image. That's what I think he cares about. I could be wrong. But I have no doubt that he sucks in a litany of ways. Same with Trump. Same with Don Jr. Same with Pete Hegseth. Name them. Name the politician. They probably suck. Ron Paul, maybe not. That'd be about it. But one time Ron Paul wrote a letter for a print that actually had a guy that later wrote that ended up being a white supremacist. I remember that shit when I was in debate. That was the knock on Ron Paul. So we got the biggest goddamn corrupt organization in the history of governments, and we finally get a crack in the armor to look into it, and we're spending our time arguing, yeah, but Elon Musk, he's probably not the perfect point man. I'd have picked other people. Okay. Cool. Great. Next. Other people wouldn't have bought X if they knew they'd be shunned, which would have led to Trump not winning. Would you also prefer that someone other than Elon buy X? Probably. I think Elon's made some questionable decisions. Seems like his pettiness has probably led to the banning or demonetization or taking away the blue check mark. I can't prove it, but it seems that's the case of people that have done things like question his stance on H-1Bs, question certain things about Israel, Palestine, etc. So then we can all sit here and talk hypothetically like, well, hypothetically, who would have been better to buy X than Elon? I suppose we could do that. What's the utility? If Elon wasn't in charge of DOGE and he had just bought X, do you think he would have still had the power to influence Trump? And said, hey, I think there's way too much spending at NASA. Because hypothetically, the same data that he's going to see, if whoever replaced Elon at DOGE was doing a good job, they would have put out that data for the public to see, including Elon Musk. So even if he wasn't ahead of DOGE, wouldn't he still been able to influence Trump to be a dirty, dirty prick and end NASA to benefit himself? Or would you have stopped that as well? How would you have done that? Would you just tell Trump never listen to Elon Musk again? Tell him to fuck off? Is that what you would have done? I mean, Elon did everything possible to back out of buying exports. So, not only that, actually, I heard the real story. You ready for this, God's fair name? Here's the real story. Not only that, he actually only went through with it because he made cyborgs that actually were on the precipice of taking over the US government. But it turned out that Biden's cyborgs were actually stronger. And they defeated his cyborgs and then forced him into bankruptcy by buying X. Who gives a shit? So, okay, Elon, let's steelman your position. Elon suggested buying X as a joke. He said, yep, I'll do it. Then he tried to back out, and then they didn't let him back out, and so he was forced to buy X, and now it's the most important free speech platform in the world. Cool? Now what? But he tried to back out. Cool. He wasn't able to, and he didn't do it for moral reasons. He's a scumbag who wants to get entirely wealthy and change the landscape of our politics. So, what's your criticism again? But he didn't do it for the right reasons. Cool. It worked out. It was X and O. Great. Then why even bring it up? Who gives a fuck? How is that relevant to the conversation we're having? It worked out, and now Trump should tell him to fuck off, right? In fact, why doesn't J.D. Vance just impeach Trump? How about that, right? Let's get Trump out of the equation, too. He's had shady, ethical fucking business shit, right? Let's get him out, too, right? God's favorite aunt? Let's get better people there, right? Let's get J.D. to oust him, and then maybe J.D. can appoint someone who's really a shrewd, ideological, constitutional, conservative businessman who never said Trump was Hitler or whatever, and then we get him to impeach Vance and get him in. Let's get the perfect people in there, right? Right? That's the way to do it. And never mind, actually having one of the fastest starts to a presidential administration ever. We don't have time for that shit. Put everything on hold. Let's get the perfect people in, right? It's time to criticize the people that Trump's put around him like that. Where did I make it sound like Musk is some great strategist when I talked about his purchasing of X? Where did I make it sound like that? Did I say, oh, Elon saw worlds ahead and it would be profitable to buy? Elon Musk probably bought X because he was pissed off about the Babylon Bee. And then let's go with you that he tried to back out of it but was forced into buying it. And, okay. Now it's one of the most important free speech platforms. Trump doesn't get elected probably without Elon buying X. And my question was, okay, given that Trump now has that sort of power and Trump's going to look at him favorably for that, should Trump tell him to fuck off? Because his conflicts with NASA. He never really built the cars himself. He didn't do shit at PayPal. So Trump's telling him to fuck off, right? Right? And then Elon's going to say, oh, okay, fuck you. Then Trump probably doesn't win the midterms. He probably doesn't win in 2028. Cool, though, right? Because at least God's favorite aunt got what he wanted. And we'd all sit around going, well, Musk never really built the cars. He didn't build the cars. So I'm glad we lost the midterms in 2028 and we were unable to accomplish anything. But at least Trump told Musk to pounce in because he never built the cars. We did great. We did it, man. Why am I even arguing with you? So dumb. Anyways, it did fill the time out, didn't it? What else is going on? That is true, because I love debate. That is true. I do love debate. Yeah, the Samantha Powers shit, right? By the way, do you know something funny about that Samantha Powers video? So I think I was watching I think it was a YouTube video from C-SPAN. Did you notice on their Cryon they have written Samantha Powell? I thought I was screwing up her name. Because, there are people that you know, that you look into a lot, like God's favorite aunt and Elon Musk. But then there's also people that you know of. Right? But sometimes you can't even put a face to them. Like if I was to say to you, Eric Charamella. You might know, yeah, that was the whistleblower that fucking everybody venerated during Trump's first term that heard the Trump-Zelensky phone call that led to the first impeachment. But I couldn't put a face to him. And I really don't know much about, I do know a little about him now, but I don't know much about him, right? You just know the name. That's like Samantha Powers. I couldn't put a face to Samantha Powers. But sometimes you screw those names up, right? Like there's a Sidney Powell. And so when I saw Samantha Powell, I was like, oh shit, I always thought her name was Samantha Powers. There you go, Samantha Power, not with the S, Samantha Power. So I was a bit shaky in the middle of that video. I'm like, am I screwing this up? Or it's like, did you ever mix someone's first and last name up? I do that all the time. Right, where you'll, like Steve Scalise, but maybe there'll be another Steve, maybe whose last name even starts with an S. And then you call him Steve Scalise, and it's like, oh shit, no, that guy's not Steve Scalise, that's the other guy. One thing that's coming up, I don't know when I'll be able to stream again, probably Thursday. One thing that's coming up is it looks like some of Trump's nominees are going to get confirmed. Yeah, enemy and enemy is exactly right. It's like you're watching a dude punch a bank robber in the face and then complaining about the moral failings of the guy that punched the bank robber. Notice, I think it's so funny how the fights that the Democrats are just, they can't keep up with the speed that Trump's going. They just can't. Now, there's a danger in this, which I'll talk about in a minute, too, with Trump. But, so, what are their big fights? Like, I mentioned this the other day, transgender issue. They basically all but conceded that fight. ICE, the deportations. At this moment, they've all but conceded that fight. Because they were then going all in on Trump's nominees. And that's where the fight was. But now, they ain't even talking about that. That was their big fight, right? For weeks. We got to stop Pete Hegseth. That failed. We got to stop Tulsi Gabbard. We got to stop Kash Patel. We got to stop RFK. We'll see. Now it seems like I'm suspicious that maybe they'll be able to stop Patel. I don't know though. But we'll see what happens. But it seems like the momentum's all moved on to now these court cases. Now, the downside for the Trump administration, and I think that the reason for that is just because so much is happening so fast. And they have to try to go all in on the issue that they think is most important. What's the most important issue for the Democrats at this point? You tell me, what is the number one concern for Democrats right now? Maybe I have a different perception than all of you. What do you think it is? Where are they putting the bulk of their energy? What's the issue you would say is their biggest issue right now with the Trump administration? Yeah? Ain't Ukraine? No. Does anyone else think it's Ukraine? Yeah, I agree. It's stopping DOGE, stopping the audits, stopping the slush fund being attacked. That's it. They got people marching on the street to protect government bureaucrats. There's impeachment processes for activist judges, but the laws are, and for correct reasons, are very difficult to legally hold accountable a judge. We don't want a system where a judge is afraid to do a ruling because for political reasons, the party in power can come back at them. So there are impeachment options. And so by doing all of this stuff at once, the trans stuff, all of these appointments like the Hegseth, and then the ones that have yet to be confirmed, your Patels, right? Because you're not going to be able to fight all of Trump's appointees because you're going to need Republicans to join you. So you got to focus in on one or two. They chose basically three. They were going to lose Pam Bondi. They ended up losing Pete Hegseth. So they had to focus on like Tulsi, RFK, Kash Patel. Political capital, they would call it. That's where they're putting their energy, their political energy. But the higher priority at this point is what we're already seeing with someone who's not even an appointee, which is Elon Musk and DOGE. That's the higher priority. At the end of the day, it won't really matter if RFK's put there if they lose their slush fund. So with each strategy that Trump's doing, the trans stuff, the appointments, so many of them, the next one looking scarier to Democrats, the deportations, hell, even one of the things I criticized Trump for was his comments on Gaza. You don't hear a lot of Democrats even pointing that out. Yeah, some on the sort of talk sphere, but they're sort of just pointing it out to the more progressive Dems. So I see people like Hutch or Pondering or Pisco or Destiny going, hey, all of you more progressive lefties that said that Kamala was for genocide in Gaza, now what? But they ain't really putting up a big fight legislatively or like with the actual politicians. All that energy's on DOGE. And Elon Musk, which is another reason that it's probably good it's Musk, because he's a lightning rod for getting so much of their attention. He did a Nazi salute. The only downside is so much is happening so fast that are the American people able to keep up? This was one of the problems with the first Trump administration. Outing corruption is fine, but you have to do something about it. I claimed all through the 2016 election, and in that entire first term, I voted for Trump for two reasons. One was to out the corruption, and second was to do something about it. And he did a phenomenal job of number one. Is there any doubt of the corruption between our intel agencies, our media, former intel agents, etc., how corrupt they were after the first Trump administration? I don't think so. Not because Trump was playing 4D chess, but because they couldn't help themselves. When you have that much power for that long and you see it slipping beneath your fingers, you're going to aggressively try to stop it. And that shows people what you're doing. Problem was, nothing got done about it. And I said this for years. Would we have been better off had Trump never won? Because it was like, the evidence of the corruption was so overwhelming and so fast, the American people just sort of accepted it. It was like, what can you do? That could be what DOGE leads to. It could lead to the American people going, yep, I always knew it, it's all corrupt. And then what's done about it? Well, nothing. So you're going to vote differently? Well, no, my senator is still good. I'm still going to vote for McConnell. I'm still going to vote for, I'm a Democrat. I'm still going to vote for Nancy Pelosi. I'm still going to vote for Chuck Schumer. Nothing changes. And the American people are just like, The breadth of the corruption is so big, it's hard to even just focus in on one issue. And I do think that the breadth of the corruption, there needs to be, and this is something that hopefully Elon's good at and the people at DOGE, they need to make, it's got to be better than just putting posts out on X. There needs to be a clear and easy to digest way for the American people to see this. Not just we released a document to the House Oversight Committee and then they release it. Like monthly presentations. I thought it was good today when you saw Musk doing the press conference with Trump. Musk and Trump collectively have spent more time already, 1 month into Trump's presidency, taking questions off the cuff and talking to the American people than Joe Biden did in his entire 4 years. That's what it's going to take. Not lying, not stretching the truth, telling the truth. I didn't mind Musk having his son there. I personally wouldn't do something like that. it's going to take as far as showing the American people the corruption. But in addition to that, they need to focus in on a couple of key things. The most important key thing that, for reasons of clarity for the American people, I used to talk about this a lot. I focused heavily on things like the corruption with the Biden family, with Burisma. Hopefully we get to the bottom of that. Personally, if I was picking, that's the fucking story I'd like them to get to the bottom of, like, immediately. So I can tell all the bullshit lefties that I've debated for years on this, eat shit. I was right, you were wrong. But the problem is, it's hard to get people fired up about that. Again, I'll talk about my neighbor Frank. Frank's like a work with his hands type dude. He's a veteran. He has political opinions, but when I start talking about, like, well, you know, there's this guy Zolchevsky and Viktor Shokin and Poroshenko, he's like, whatever. How does that affect me and my family right now? But you know what did affect him? COVID. That affected him. And everyone I know that affected. And it probably affected most of the people you know and most of the people watching in significant ways. Not so much COVID, but the reaction to COVID. The lockdowns, the non-essential workers. That shit. Remember that? I remember. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness, how do you pronounce your name? Just says epic fail. For $20, I'll take it. I've epically failed. Thank you so much, Ab, or however you pronounce your name. I appreciate it. How do you think the American people will feel when we could actually show the receipts of how our money went to finance COVID in the Wuhan lab? And that the guy that we were told they had to listen to that called them non-essential was the person that was spearheading sending the money to do it. And that most members of Congress, particularly the Democrats, knew this and actively tried to cover it up. All three, Jarhead. Okay, my mistake. It showed up weird. Jarhead. Oh, the libs failed, not me. For $20, you call me a shithead. I don't care. Thank you. I appreciate it. Oh, okay. 0431 is the code for a machine gunner in the Marines. Thank you for your service. Jarhead, I knew what that meant. But the way it showed up for me, because it's a long name, there was a sticker attached to it, it just said like 0431 JA and then like RH head. I was like, but yeah, I got it. It's not your job that made you non-essential. It's your fucking who you are. That's why you are non-essential. You can't fire people for being inept or corrupt in their job in government. That's got Democrats out marching on the street. But you could fire them for not taking their experimental vaccine, which they had no proof was necessary. In fact, data from the CDC at the time showed actually it was net harmful to force people that already had COVID to take the vaccine, at least of a working age. Didn't have a problem with that. Didn't have a problem with firing people like that. Remember when they kicked Sean Spicer off the board he was on? Is there any kind of information that the government should keep from the public? Sure, absolutely. Should we know where our special forces are all around the world, like the exact location? Of course not, right? If there are things that literally in the moment are jeopardizing lives, and sure. Or imagine that we're like in a conflict like the Cold War. Does the American people have the right to know who every spy is and where they are? Probably not. That seems nonsensical. But I think at a certain point, most things should be disclosed to the public. There is an ethical question to ask. Are there times when leaders have the right to lie to the people that they're tasked with leading? Jarhead that just donated to me. You're serving on the front lines in some conflict. Your immediate commander is basically informed that you have to charge a location and that probably 90% of your company will die. Should he be transparent with that? I don't know. I've never served. Me being the coward I am, I think I would operate better if our commander didn't say that. He just said, we're going to win this shit. Let's go, boys. Not if he said, we're probably all going to die. I don't know. Maybe different motivation tactics for different types of people. But I can certainly see, in a military sense, why you wouldn't want full transparency for everyone at every level. And so when you're talking about a government that has oversight of the military, it seems that that would make sense with the public as well, to a degree. Cody Folsom, thanks so much for the $5. Says, hope it's going well, Rob. Always going well, pretty well. I get called into work extra, so that's a bummer, but I am taking vacation next week, so it should be good. Immediate obedience to orders, right. No, I'm not doing anything cool at all for me. Well, yes, actually I'm hanging out with my wife and kid. I got some like spring cleaning type stuff. I know it's not spring yet, but that I have to start. My problem with being at work so much, I rarely get time to do like stupid like chore shit around the house. So like I still have Christmas lights up outside. I got to get those down because every day I've had off, it's been like sleeting. So it's like, and then I got to burn some boxes that are still in the basement from Christmas. But basically the reason I'm taking time off is because I just kind of need some time to relax. But more importantly than that is I have so much vacation time saved up, and our fiscal year at my company ends at the end of June. And we're getting to the point where I'm going to have to take like a month off or I'm going to lose the time. So it's difficult to take time off though, because there's only me and one other person that works in this house. So we each work half the week. And if I take off, so normally that gentleman comes on Wednesday. So halfway through Wednesday, he'll come in and he works Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then we split either Saturday or Sunday. I come in. It switches every week. Right. And then I work either Saturday or Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So if I take off, he'll work Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Then he works my Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Then he works Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And I come in that Sunday. So he's stuck here 10 days in a row. And the same when he takes time off. So both of us, because we like each other, I've known my coworker my whole life. Because we like each other, you don't really want to put your coworker in that position where it's like, hey man, you're going to be stuck there for 10 days. So like, it just, I have to take the time though, or I'm going to lose it. Yeah, I am working an Elon schedule. Luckily, my job is not physically demanding or intellectually demanding. It's emotionally demanding. If I told you what I do on a daily schedule, an average day, you would be like, talk about wasting tax dollars. This guy doesn't do shit. Like, I probably watched 4 hours of SpongeBob today. We go fishing a lot. Movies, baseball games, shit like that. But then, if you were involved, if you saw me in public, a lot of times people's reaction are like, woo, you have a lot of patience. Because I'm not going to talk specifics, and I do primarily work with one person, but I also could work with many people, right? So it's working with one person at a time. Generally what happens like in my job is you get a house that you normally work in, but also I get pulled overtime into other houses and things of that nature. But because there's only 2 people at my house, and that's the way it's been for a long time, and I'm doing so much overtime here, they're rarely pulling me overtime at other houses. But I've worked easily with 30, 40 clients. So I'll speak in generality instead of specifics. A lot of people with disabilities, autism, and things like that, there's a lot of things that are challenging, and you have to have a lot of patience because communication styles might be different. So one thing maybe you'll deal with is hearing the same question 300 times a day. And there are moments when it gets to you. There are moments where you're like, I just need a moment. I just need a moment. That's why when I get downtime at work, one of the things I like to do is when I'm off the clock is stream, because sometimes maybe you could tell like I'm giving shit to God's favorite aunt and Taylor M and stuff. This is cathartic for me. I get to be this person. It's like, fuck you. I don't get to do that. Certainly you shouldn't be like that with your wife and with your kid anyways, but I certainly don't get to do that at work. It's not like working construction. You know, I've worked manual labor jobs where you'd be like, fuck you. Give your coworker the business and stuff like that. There is no option for that shit here. Because you're not dealing with a coworker, you're dealing with someone that you're a caretaker of. And you have to bite your lip. This is a type of job where if you get punched in the head, you don't get to swing back. You don't. If you get verbally abused, you don't get to be verbally abusive back. 300 chances to give the right answer. Yeah, that's one way of looking at it. So, I mean, it could be emotional. Like, I don't know if emotional is the right way. It could be exhausting. I'll just put it that way. It really can, right? It's not like, but I tell people, it's not like, you know, I have a friend, for example, that works on oil rigs, you know, and if he's like, dude, I just did a 10-day stretch working like 16-hour days, that dude's physically fucking beat, because that is a physically intensive, exhaustive job. It ain't like that with me. Yeah, there you go, Nico. That's why I use it. So it is, you know, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of hours. But in many ways, it can be relaxing. It's rewarding, but it can be exhausting. So sometimes you just need, like, it's nice to just have a week off. It's like, whoo, just a week off. And then sometimes, and then of course, like any job, I talk about this a lot, the most challenging things end up being the bullshit you're dealing with not your direct job. So dealing with HR, or dealing with one of your 10 supervisors, or dealing with, you know, I deal with a lot of medical facilities, doctors or nurses or pharmacies. Sometimes that shit can be a pain in the ass, you know? What if medication gets sent to your house and it's wrong? You'd be surprised how difficult it is to correct that mistake, you know? Everyone's like, wasn't our fault. We didn't do it. And it's like, yeah, I don't care whose fault it is. We need to correct medication. Let's see. Are the folks I ever work with challenging behavior-wise? Do I deal with violence? Yeah. It depends. Each individual's different. Some you're more likely to see violence than others. But the first not in the company I'm at now, but the first person I ever worked with was the strongest human being I've ever seen, with no joke whatsoever. That could have physically destroyed me 5 seconds tops. They put me in the hospital 3 times. I don't even know how much I should say about this. You know how, like, the power lines that you see, right? They connect to your house. And, like, if you could picture this, like, it's like power line wires, and then they become smaller wires, and then they come to your house, right? And then they usually go in this, like, I don't know what it is, like this thing, and then it's, like, kind of, it's still wires, but it's inside, like, a plastic or metal tube that runs down the side of your house. I watched a person rip that off the side of the house. And then the tension from the line snapped it. And so they were just holding a wire, which thankfully I don't think was live, because they chased me with the wire that they thought was live. They wanted to end it for me. It was, now luckily, believe it or not, I don't look like a very agile man, but I was faster than that person that day and get out of harm's way. But I've been hit with a cinder block. I've been beaten while driving. I've had glass shattered and then thrown at me. I've had a shelf ripped off a dresser, and then I was ambushed with that, swung it at my head. I missed that one, though. They missed me with that. So it could be extremely violent. Believe it or not, for me, that's not the worst part. The worst part is if potential members of the community are in danger. Because most of the time, you could get away unless you're ambushed. But most of the time, this is cliche, but it's true. Most things are a form of communication. And so a lot of times, if there is violence, it's telling you something. And so a lot of times, in my experience, it's been telegraphed. 7,200 watts, there you go. So it's been telegraphed. So it's like, and then come take like 4 steps towards you. Where do you think they're going to do, right? They're probably not going to throw a roundhouse kick. They're probably not coming, faking you out with the right and then coming with the left uppercut or something. They're probably going to. So most of the time you could see, or, they'll, even pick up a plate. So most of the time, but there have been those occasions where at least that one particular client and one other that would be like more of an ambush, where it would be like, hey, can you come in my room for a second? Sure. And then, yeah, when I was beaten while driving, the person was behind me and grabbed my shirt like this and started throwing haymakers to the side of my face. So my hands are on the wheel, so I'm trying to, and I pulled off the side of the road, but they actually were pulling so hard in my shirt, they ripped it. So like the sleeves were still hanging on, but there was like the back of my shirt basically was ripped almost completely off. Believe it or not, I didn't get hurt that bad that time. Another time I was driving and they smashed the windows out in the car while I was driving. So that was scary, because you don't know if like glass is getting on the person you're supporting, or and then you're sort of stuck on the highway. You're like, what do we do now? You can't drive in that situation. So there's been a lot of bad situations like that I've had in the past. But I will say most of that, I have not seen anything to that level for years. Most of it is mostly peaceful now. I always say like 95% of the time at this job, you're like, wow, I can't believe I get paid to do this. And then the other 5%, you're like, wow, I can't believe this is all I get paid to do this. Because when it gets bad, it could get really bad. Like if you're in public and things go haywire, it could get really bad. Because it's not just you escaping harm at that point. Now you have to protect not only the public, but also your person that maybe he's having a really bad day. And it's not like, it's not like me or you where it's like, well, if I like, screw this, and I decided to start punching people at Pizza Hut, you'd be like, dude, this guy's getting what's coming to him, right? But it's not like that. It's someone with autism that maybe is nonverbal. And so you still want to protect them, but it's more important that you protect any member. It's weird. It gets weird. And I'm certainly not trained for that shit. So you're just doing your best in those unique situations. No, not the vast majority of people I've worked with, I haven't had any violence with whatsoever. So don't think that's the norm. But as a kind of a bigger guy, when I started in the field, that's where I was put. In fact, one of the last questions they asked me after my first training at my first company was, do you mind getting hit? And I went there with my best friend in high school. We both put our names in. Neither of us were qualified, but okay, we went through the training. It was like 3 days. Then they're going to put us in a house. And my friend was like, yeah, I don't want hit. And I was like, I guess I don't mind. And so they put him in a house. And that first year, all he did all the time, he would call me and be like, oh, this job's easy. I just play Wii bowling all day with my client. And I'm like, yeah, I'm in the hospital. I got hit with a cinder block. And we're both getting paid like $11 an hour or some shit. It was not good. But yeah, I mean, it happens. But every house is challenging, right? The second house I was in, it was the complete opposite. There was no violence whatsoever. But the company was trying to like use this client as an example of how good they were. And so there was so much other bullshit that had nothing to do with the client. It was the company. They put me in a position where they were like, oh, well, this person goes to a day program where they take classes. You're going to be his teacher. I'm not qualified to teach anyone anything. And they're like, oh, it'll be a simple curriculum. Like, and this person was nonverbal. So it's like, we're going to teach math. We're going to teach science. And I'm like, okay. But I had a bachelor's degree, so they're like, oh, you'd be good. Okay. I actually thought I did pretty damn good. Like for science, I thought that they were, the person I'm working with is like 18 or 19, and I felt like the program they had was like fucking infantile. It was insulting. Just because someone's nonverbal doesn't mean, that they're dumb. So we decided, I guess me, but the people that were working under me, because I was like a supervisor at that house, we came up with like, well, how can you apply science in a way that's fun, that would be of interest to this particular person? And one of the things we liked was different weather conditions, rain and snow and stuff like that. So we bought like the whole rigmarole. We would measure the rain every night. Like we had a rain measure, and we had like a barometer, and we would have this chart where we would write down, the staff would write down with them every day, like, oh, okay, what was the barometric pressure? What's the temperature? How, what's the wind? And instead of just going to the Weather Channel, we tried to have all the instruments that we could do those readings ourselves. And then we tried to like keep that. And then we would talk about what that meant. Like, because I didn't know shit. I couldn't tell you shit all about barometric pressure. So I'm sort of learning with the client, like, oh, well, this is what maybe we can expect. And, and then we would talk a little history, like, well, what did they do before, we had the Weather Channel? How would they decide what the rain would be and stuff like that? And then I remember doing different types of clouds. So we started with that, with like weather. And then, we went with like the states of water, right? Where we would do like, ice, vapor, stuff like that. So I don't know. I thought it was sort of original. I tried to come up with some shit that I thought wasn't childlike, but at the same time had practical application, but I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. Like I said, at that point, I think I got a raise. It's making $12 an hour, and they just throw you in, and you got 50 different supervisors calling you every day. Well, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. And it was actually, at some points you were like, I missed the days where I was getting the shit beat out of me, but I never saw anyone from the office because the office was scared shit to come into that house. So it was just me, and one other staff. What's up, Max? How you doing, man? So, I mean, it was, it just depends. I always kind of took offense when people would be like, well, I work at an easy house. Well, it shouldn't be easy. One of the challenges I face now, I've been primarily with one individual for about 14 years, is getting complacent, right? We're in a good place. Things look good. But does that mean that we should just go through the motions every day? So we're constantly trying to be like, let's come up with new stuff. Some of it's a bust. Sometimes we do stuff and it's like, nope, of no interest. But how will you know until you try? So for years, we watched baseball on television. And I would be like, do you want to go to a ball game? And there's a lot of social anxiety. No, I don't like crowds. Okay, but would you like to go if there wasn't a crowd? Yeah. So what we started to do was we would go to college baseball games in the town that I'm at because almost no one would be there. And we would sit tippy-toppy, top of the fucking, bleachers where no one was around. So it's just sort of us. And then we combined it with other stuff. Like we like concessions. So hey, if we go, we can get hot dogs and some soda, so that there was a fun event to go there. And we would have other people that maybe weren't in the house every day that would show up and meet us there. Like people that worked at the company. Hey, so-and-so will be there if we go. It'd be cool to see them, right? So we did that for a long while. Then we would drive out. He liked the Pittsburgh Pirates. So we would get tickets and we'd drive out to the game and we wouldn't go in. We'd get to the parking lot and then there'd be too many people and we wouldn't go in. We would meet all these other people that were going to be at the game from Pittsburgh from our office. Well, this person will be there and this person will be there. So we tried that 4 or 5 times. And I shit you not, the thing that was amazing that got us in to the first Pirate game was we were wearing Pirate t-shirts, I think a McCutcheon shirt. And when we pulled into the parking lot there in Pittsburgh, pretty close to PNC Park where they play, woman gets out of the car next to us and she's wearing the same shirt, like the same McCutcheon shirt. And it wasn't like a jersey. It was like, a picture with his face and, and I was like, look at that, same shirt as you. So we wound down the window in the car and he's talking to this lady and we get out of the car and walked with this lady and her husband and their kid. We walked like kind of behind them, but talking to them about the Pirates the whole time. And by the time that we were sort of done talking to them, we're in the park. We're getting scanned to get in the park. And that lady has no idea, just some random lady that was super nice to us, how she changed the course of like so much of what we do, because now we go to events because I'm like, hey, see, people are nice, man. You don't have to worry about people. Like, I understand crowds aren't always the most fun, but people are pretty nice. But yeah, that's what it took. Just kept trying over and over and over again. And then some random lady. And then we get into the ballpark and everyone was very cool. There's like, I don't know if you've ever gone to a major league game. I assume that it's like this in most ballparks. But when they're scanning us and stuff, my client's very nervous and he's talking to sort of the workers that are taking your ticket and stuff. And they were like, hey, there's like I don't know what the word would be for it, but like a sort of hospitality section where you can go and talk to people. And so we went and they gave us this really cool picture of PNC Park. And it had a section where they could write who was playing. So the Pirates were playing, I believe, the Braves. And they wrote the date for us. And then we just had to fill out the final score. And they gave us a frame. So we were able to put our tickets in that and put that picture of PNC Park with the two teams and the final score. So that's hanging up in our mantle in our living room. That was a very important moment for us. It took 4 years to finally get into one of those games. Now we go every year, but it would have been easy to just been like, well, we like fishing. No one's around fishing. We'll just do that every day. But you're always trying to be like, well, what's the next thing I could do? And sometimes that's the hardest thing. The other, like, it's very hard in this line of work. The more they tell you you're not just friends with someone, they're not members of your family, blah, blah, blah. And that's true, but it's not true. It's hard to say this like in a training environment. We didn't do football games yet. That's a little more rowdy crowd. Baseball's pretty relaxed. Also, rarely do we stick around for the whole game. Usually we make it 4 or 5 innings. But you are in a therapeutic relationship. It is not my brother. It is not my son. It's not my nephew. Or if it's a woman, your niece or your sister or whatever. So, on one hand, you can't help but become friendly. At this point, the person I work with is basically a member of my family. They know everyone in my family. I live in a small town. You'll be grocery shopping. My brother's there. My mom's there. You run into people. And so they're a member of your family in that sense. And I spend half my life here. Half my life. Every week, half my week is basically with one person. So you can't help but develop a relationship like that. But on the other hand, I am paid to be here. So, like, you can't yell at them like you would yell at your son or, a friend. The example I use all the time is like, if I talk to my friends and say, hey, you want to go to the movies this Friday? And they're like, yeah. And I show up to the movie theater and we walk in, we get the ticket, and we sit down, and they go, I don't feel like being here, let's leave. You'd be like, what? No. But you can't do that. You have to be like, okay, what's wrong? Why not? Okay, if you want to go, we could go. That's the way it works. You don't get to get mad. If you're a big sports fan and you're super gung-ho to watch Super Bowl and you put up Super Bowl, you buy pom-poms and you order pizza and you're going to have a tailgate in the game, it's 5 seconds from coming on, and the person you're supporting is like, I don't want to watch the Super Bowl now. I want to watch Walker, Texas Ranger. Guess what? You're watching Walker. That's the way she goes. That's how it works. So it's one of the things that's very difficult is if you get to work consistently with a person, you're working with them for years and years and years and years, and 99% of the days are really good, you start to develop an expectation for what your workday is going to look like. But then what if it isn't? And you have tendency to be like, get pissed off. And there are times, and maybe I'll get in trouble for saying this, I don't know, but there are times where I'll have to do some slight personal stuff while I'm at work. If I left my job, would I go back to visit? I did leave my job. I quit here when my wife was pregnant and started selling life insurance, and I visited about once every other week. So yes, I would still certainly, I have and would come back and visit. Now, a bigger question would be, well, I only live like 5 minutes away, so it's not a big deal. What if I moved, though? Then I'd like to think, but I don't know. If I was like 3 states over, would I make a trip once or twice a year? Maybe. I would hope, but who knows? You know how it is. Life sometimes takes you in weird directions. But as it is now, I certainly would. So yeah, that's a challenge. Like, if you expect things to be smoothly, like I got my master's degree online predominantly, instead of like when I was off the clock streaming now, when I'd be off the clock, I'd do my classes. But what if you have a quiz coming up and you're like, that's cool, I'll be able to do it Thursday night. And then all of a sudden you have a thing occur. And your client's like, nah, you're not going to do that. Then you're not going to do it. And a lot of times what happens is that's where people get in trouble, because now they're pissed. Just like if your friend screwed you over, you're pissed, you're going to let them have it. I'm not saying physically, though that shit happens, but like verbally or something. You can't do that. I can't tell you how many people I've seen get rode up, get fired, get moved to different houses for sort of like that reason, where it's like, well, this is bullshit, I had stuff to do. And, made a fool out of me. We drove to the game and then we didn't even get out of the car, and screw all that. I told them, this is bullshit, you wasted my time. Then the client tells the supervisor, they yelled at me, they said it was bullshit. Can't do that. I do stay overnight. Do I get much sleep? No. A lot of that's my fault. I could be sleeping right now, off the clock, but I'm not. I'm doing this. But it depends. Theoretically, if you're in a house that needs an awake overnight, then you sleep those 8 hours. But if you're in a house that isn't, sometimes you do have to get up in the middle of the night, if that's what happens. So it just depends. Normally what happens is they find a routine sleeping schedule, and that's the time you have off. It's a big point of contention, though. It's very strange how the law is written in Pennsylvania here. So I'm not getting paid right now. And that infuriates a lot of people I work with, and me to a degree. So if I work, I come in Saturday. So Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then I leave Wednesday. That's 8 hours each of those 4 days that I have to be here that I'm not paid for. That's 32 hours. 32 hours that I'm not paid for. But I have to be here. I can't be like, okay, cool, I'm not in the clock, I'm heading home. Can't do that. But I'm not paid. That's what I said. It's crazy. If you literally, if I got paid those hours every week, a bare minimum, my check would be 81 hours, 82 hours a week, because I have to be here half the week. That's half the week, roughly half the week. Yes, I do have to respond to events in those non-paid hours, and then I would clock in. So for example, if the fire alarm goes off, I would have to clock in. If my client would come knock on the door and say, I feel sick, or if they just come and say, I'm having a bad time, can you get up? Then I have to get up. And then I would clock in at that point. But until then, I don't get paid. Not every company's like that. Some company, my brother worked for a company that literally was, you came into work, you worked 40 hours straight. That's it, then you went home. Yeah, I'm on standby but don't get paid. So if you look, it's very weird. So I'll explain briefly the law. I don't know if there's states that pay you overnight. I know that the law governing this in Pennsylvania I've read, and it basically, our line of work coincides with, or at least the way they do this, is this law that's written. There are also people that will, maybe you've seen this. I've seen this in Pennsylvania. Oh, my brother's in here. Go Rams is my brother in real life. I make $20 an hour. So some companies, like the one I used to work for, they'll pay you minimum wage for those sleep hours. So let's say you make $20 an hour, but then you're supposed to clock out at 8 p.m. and then for 8 hours. From 8 p.m. till 4 a.m., you would make minimum wage, $7.50 or whatever it is here. And then when you time to clock in gets back in, you'd go back to making your 20 an hour or whatever. So that's how some places do it. But the law is basically, so you can get paid to be a live-in health aide in the state of Pennsylvania. And a lot of times the way this works is, and I've seen this happen, let's say my aunt gets sick and she needs an in-home health aide, but she's poor and doesn't have money for it. There are grants that the state will give that they will put up a certain amount of money to pay someone to be a live-in health aide. And a lot of times it'll be a friend or family member of that person that becomes that live-in aide. But you can see how that's a different situation than what I'm doing. But the rules for the live-in aide thing says the state's not going to pay you if you live in that house to sleep. So if I move into my aunt's house and I get paid by the state up to 16 hours a day, 5 days a week to take care of my aunt, but I go to bed at 11 p.m., they ain't paying me from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. That's the purpose of the law that says that you don't have to pay people that are live-in, that are through their sleep shift. So that's how a company like mine says, well, we don't have to pay you. I would bet that a skilled attorney may be able to go in and say, no. That's not what's going on here. This is different. I don't know. Most of the places that I know that do pay for the overnight, like the minimum wage or something for the overnight, they tend to pay you less per hour than the company I'm at. So it sort of evens out. So in effect, if I'm making $21 an hour, but I'm not getting paid for those hours, maybe then that defaults to I'm getting paid on average $16 to $17 an hour. If I was getting paid for those, I don't know. But I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, think about it. I think when I started at this company, I started at like 13 an hour or something like that. And then they bumped everyone up to 15. And then they had these training opportunities, which was a $3 raise. And then just with the raises that I've gotten since I've been here for 14 years, I now make like 20, 21 an hour, 20 and change an hour. But with that pay scale, imagine if they owed me 3 nights a week for 14 years. So 24 hours, we'll say on average, for 52 weeks times 14. Even if that's just making $15 an hour, that's a considerable chunk of change that they would owe. Yeah, total money per week. So my checks, well, yes and no. Yes, all that matters is total per week. As far as compensation goes. But what if you have to work all week to get paid? And I'll just say, without throwing my company under the bus, when the topic of raises come up, what they oftentimes tell you is, well, we don't do that, but you could work more hours. And it's like, yeah, I guess I could. I could spend every day of my life working, I suppose. But I'd like to go home at some point. So it'd be nice if I got adequate compensation and got to spend time at home. The benefits are okay, yeah. Yes, right. That makes sense, Cody. I see what you're saying. Right. And that's what I've explained to people that work here, right? If you go to the company down the road and you're getting paid $12 an hour, but they're paying you minimum wage for your sleep shift, you're still making less for working the same hours than you are at this company. Have I thought about moving to an area that has higher pay average, like another state? No. I'm going to live and die here. I like being close to my family. So, nope. In fact, that's probably kept me from opportunities in other fields. For example, I have a master's degree in speech communication. I had offers to be a debate coach in other states and stuff, but I really don't want to move. Oftentimes, I think what happens is, like, depending on your job, I could, in this line of work, find myself in a different state, in a rural area. But if you really wanted to make money, you'd probably move to an area that was more urban And I don't want to do that at all. I'd rather live. It'd be different if I was missing meals or wasn't able to afford the mortgage and shit like that. But that's not the case. And I fucking love living in rural Pennsylvania, particularly in the area I'm at. So I don't want to live in a city ever. And so that does impede a lot of the opportunities. But used to live in PA and old friends are making half of what I do in a different state with the same job. Yeah. So I don't know particularly. Maybe other states do have better payments. Of course, there's talk of, are they going to increase wages? And listen, on the periphery, there is a little bit of a conversation of, well, state money goes into paying for a program like that I do. And so if we're really auditing a lot of state payments, this would be more state level, not federal, but the idea of auditing the federal government. There's waste in my field. I would argue that I think this is money well spent. In general, I think the work that we do is important. There's a lot of people that have sort of, with mental health, fallen through society. And like when you hear like open back up the mental facilities, I'm not stupid. You can't have everyone in this position that some of the people that I work with are in. It just wouldn't be feasible. You couldn't have, like, let's say you had 10 million people in home healthcare facilities like this. On average, you need 4 employees per person. 40 million people employed in this line of work. It's not going to work. I get that. But in general, the success rate is far superior for people that are in a facility like this than if you put them in a facility like, mental institutions. So I think it's people that are the right criteria. Many of the people that I work with, are actually able to have astounding, like amazing lives and help contribute to society. Most of them just want jobs, want friends, want a boyfriend or a girlfriend, want to hang out with their family. And it's such a contradiction to so many people I know in real life that are like, what? How could I get out of work? Like someone who just desperately wants to work, but because of their disabilities is having trouble finding employment, So I respect it, but to each their own. People might say, well, how could you be Republican and for fiscal responsibility if you work with a field that gets government money? Because I can. That's why. But it's an interesting line of work. It's not for everyone. I enjoy it. It pays like shit, as do most healthcare fields. Like doctors might make money, but I always thought, even before I was in this line of work, it's like people that work at nursing homes get paid like shit. I mean, imagine that. Or work hospice care. There's a solid chance if you live to old age that the most important people in your life, the last year of your life, it's not going to be your kids, it's not going to be your grandkids, it's going to be that nurse that's taking care of you every day. That, to me, think about that. That lady's getting paid, what, $13 an hour? Not like an RN nurse, but like the woman working at the nursing home, the hospice care worker. It's fucking mind-blowing. Have I ever had a breakthrough moment other than the baseball moment? Yeah, the best moment I ever had was a person that I spent, the person I work with the most, right? Used to have to, there's a lot of medications and doctor's appointments and things. And a lot of it is each individual has unique, obviously, medical issues that they're dealing with. But there are state regulations. So if you're going to be a facility that does this, there's certain metrics that you have to hit. In Pennsylvania, a lot of those regulations fall under what's called the 6400 regulations. So it might be things like, how many times a year does your facility have to take the person to go see the dentist? How many fire drills do you have to do in the home? Right? There's all sorts of regulations. And there's a lot that have to do with medical appointments, whether it be dentist, eye doctor, physical, TB tests, all sorts of things like that. So we used to have to go to a medical facility once a month and receive an injection. And there was a nice old lady that was the woman that gave us this injection. And we actually went to this one facility until that facility basically went out of business and our nurse moved to a different facility. So we moved to that facility. And every month we would go. It was like always on a Tuesday, and we would go. And just a nice old lady. She used to talk about biking and stuff a lot. And we would talk to her, and it was, she's nice. So we go in one day, and she, always very pleasant. And she's like, gives us our shot and everything. It's like, I have something to tell you guys. This is my last day. I'm actually retiring. And I had got to know her and knew that she used to be at one of the psychiatric facilities. And in that facility, she had met my client. And that's all I basically knew of that. But my client told me that. Oh, yes, this facility I was at. And the client, not the most articulate talker. So just kind of repeating that he knew this person and didn't say much about their interactions with them. So the woman says she's retiring. And that's a bummer. We always appreciate coming to see you. What are you going to do? Oh, I plan on, traveling with my husband. We like biking. We're going to bike a lot. And cool. So you go out, and she follows us out. It always follows us out, and we set up the time and the date with the next appointment. She pulls me by the shirt and is like, come here for a second. I was like, yeah. So my client's talking to the other nurse within eyesight. It's like 5 feet away from me, and she starts whispering to me. And she says, when I first met your client, I was scared to death of him because it was in this psychiatric facility and there was a lot of violence. And then she just starts crying and she can barely talk. And she says, he's my favorite person to see every week, every month. That was the best moment I had at work. And she's like, I just want to say thank you because I think you've done really good work with him. So to be able to work with someone that, a nice lady like that was a nurse that maybe knew him for a span of 25 years, went from being afraid to be in a room with him to looking forward every month, not being afraid anymore, but actually looking forward. To me, that was the highlight of what I do. Like that would have, if I'd have quit my job that day, it would have been all worth it because it's like, that's who I think, that person she came to know, to me, is who that person really is. When you hear people talk about what it was like to be in these psychiatric facilities, a lot of it's like prison, man. Like, it's fucked up. Other clients would beat the shit out of you, and a lot of these facilities, like there's a big famous one here near where I live that's closed down now. It's called Polk, and Polk was famous in the 80s. Nancy Reagan visited and was basically like, shut this shit down. I don't know how many of these stories are true about Polk, but one of the stories you hear is when people would die in this facility, they didn't bury the bodies deep enough out back, and so there was a flood one time, and like bodies started to wash up like in this town. And it's because they just dig like a 3-foot hole and throw people in them and fuck it, That's sort of indicative of, I think, a lot of the mentality. But to defend them a little, what do? If you have 5 nurses for every 40 clients and clients start fist fighting and you're a 140-pound nurse, what are you going to do? Shoot them up with a medication to basically zonk them out, put them in a straitjacket, tie them to their bed? But what do you do if you're a nonviolent person, but maybe you're nonverbal or you're autistic, and all of a sudden your roommate starts punching you? What are you going to do? Eventually you're going to fight back. But just like in prison, the guards just see a fight and both people get punished. And so I've worked with people that have told me horror stories. I worked with a person that can't eat mayonnaise because when they didn't want to take their pills, they would tie them to the bed and then they would take the pill and they dip it in mayonnaise and shove it in their throat and then shove it down their throat. And to this day, years later, can't have mayonnaise because of that, which that would do it for me. And so when you hear people that are in that sort of situation, and then most of the time people have a chart, right? And when you go to work, you're not supposed to disclose the details of people's charts, obviously for medical privacy, etc. But when you start working, a lot of times there's a chart and a plan that kind of explains some of the challenges you can see. And it's kind of like that episode of Seinfeld where Elaine's got the medical chart and all the doctors could see that she's difficult because she had argued with doctors in the past. It's sort of like that. How would you feel if every moment of your life's put down on paper somewhere, and then someone's coming to work with you and they could read all the low points in your life? Oh, this time the police came. Oh, this time got in a fight with a client. Oh, this time got in a fight with a staff. There it is. And so people get a reputation. You were in one of these facilities, you're basically fighting for your life like you're in prison, so you get labeled a problem, which means you're less likely to get out of that facility, you're not verbal, and maybe your IQ is not very high, or you have, other challenges that you're not communicating in the same way. So what do? They put you on more medication, and then things get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And then all of a sudden, someone who maybe is has some problems interacting with society, but just needs someone to help steer them the right way. Now, because they've been put in this shitty situation, it looks even worse for them. And so a lot of times, but let me be clear. Sometimes I think people in the field I'm in are too much like hippies. And they're just like, oh, everyone should be in a facility like this, and and everything will be sunshine and roses. No, some people are too violent. Like, the home I'm in right now is in the middle of a town. There is no problem with that. All of our neighbors love us. All the local stores love us. Some of the people I worked with, I wouldn't want living next to me if I had a kid. So it's weird, And so if you're just reading a record of someone and you say, this person has a history of violence, do you want them living next to you? Well, maybe it's a person like the person I'm talking to. That, yeah, they had a history of violence, but when you start looking into it, it turns out it was for a reason. And when you actually have consistent staff that are working for, 20 years, it turns out to be one of the most kind-hearted, nicest people you could ever imagine. It's not a violent person at all. But how would you know that? Would you be violent if you were put in prison? Would you be violent if you were put in a psych ward and people were punching you in the face? Probably. Does that mean you're a violent person? Probably not. But how do you separate that? If you're, an individual deciding who's okay for this type of house and who isn't. And so it is challenging. It's one of the hardest things to do, to have to sit down in a meeting and be like, I don't know if our company can handle this person. And I've been there, because the companies I've worked for have all been non-restraints. So I'm not allowed to restrain any emergency. I could do some very limited restraints. But there are companies like this that are companies designed to be able to restrain people. And sometimes what happens is someone will get moved out of that type of company into a company that's non-restraint, but there's still incredible levels of violence that are occurring over and over and over and over and over and over again. And then once the community becomes endangered, to me it's clear something needs to change. This isn't a test lab where we just hope that we don't beat the shit out of the neighbor. That's bullshit. That's not fair to the neighbor. That's not fair to the person we're supporting. Because if the worst occurs, the quality of their life's going to diminish greatly as well. So there needs to be middle grounds. I'm not saying throw them in prison, throw them in I'm not saying that. But you can't just be a hippie and be like, oh man, everything's cool. Like, you have to be sensible about this shit. And I see that it's either two extremes. It's either people are like, fuck everyone like that, just put them in a facility and lock the door. Or, no facilities ever, and just leave everyone out in a, So it's how do I keep the trauma out of my personal life and relationships? It can be difficult. One of the things my wife yells at me all the time for is, because there's so much repetition and stuff that I deal with on a daily work thing. Sometimes she'll be talking to me and I'm just like, She's like, are you fucking listening to me, or are you doing like you do at work? So a lot of times you do tune out when it's like the repetition stuff. I think for me, it's the same way. Yeah, well, it's a little different. But I'm able to separate politics from real life as well. Like, how can I be friends with people that think that Trump's like a genocidal maniac? Well, I am. I don't know. I'm just able to separate it. I think a lot of it has to do with my real life. Well, real life. Work's real life too. But my home life is very awesome. I have a tremendous wife. I have a tremendous son. I have really cool brothers and parents. I love my in-laws. My neighbors are cool. My friends are really cool. So it makes it easy. If your home life sucks and your job's very stressful, I can imagine how things would spiral out of control. But it's not like that for me. So when I get home, it's sort of cathartic. And also, a lot of the stress that I have, I think I take out on this stream. Sometimes I feel bipolar on here because I can come on and be the most rational, calm person in the world, and then I could be like, Taylor M, fuck you. God's favorite aunt, go fuck yourself. And then sometimes I lay at night and I'm like, wow, I'm kind of flying off the handle there. But it is what it is. To me, this is sort of cathartic. But I think with work, one of the things you do is you focus on a lot of the positives. So you focus on like, well, is there meaning? Because this is really the first job I've ever had where I think at the end of the day, if I would die and I'm on my deathbed, I could say, I did some good in that job. You know, being a debate coach, yeah, I taught people how to argue well. It's a game. I guess there's some utility in that. But I don't know that it was like a moral good, you know, or working fast food I did. I worked at a real estate place. Worked at a Christmas tree farm. Worked at a hobby farm. Yeah, not a lot of calmness on here. So I don't know. So if you could say, well, when the good is good, it's very good. So when there's challenging times, I think that helps a lot. But yeah, man, it sucks. You know, some of the things that suck the most are, oh shit, I should be careful. The first guy I worked with, like, this was sort of, so I worked as a debate coach, state of Pennsylvania, didn't pass the budget in like 2008. So I basically was out of a job like that, like in the middle of a day. So I picked up the newspaper. I put my name in for the first 2 jobs I saw. This line of work, and for a different company that I'm with now, but this line of work, and being a nighttime security guard somewhere. This line of work, that company called me back first. I went. I was like, I'm not qualified for this, blah, 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 blah. I went. I did it. Whatever. They put me in this house that was extremely violent. Not only was it extremely violent, it was what you might call gross. A lot of bodily fluids. What you learn is a lot of people in this position are traumatized. I'm dealing mostly with adults, so think of what it would have been like to be severely autistic to the point of basically being nonverbal 40 years ago. There was less understanding than there would be today. And a lot of times what happens is people's parents would just put them in a facility, or, you know, if your parents both worked or whatever, there were just strangers around. One of the reasons that children are so easy to victimize is because it's easier to get away with, because they're less powerful. Like, not just physically, though. Also, maybe they don't understand as much, so it's harder for them to communicate if there's someone that's a predator around them. Well, the same is true of people with developmental disabilities. And in fact, if you believe the numbers, which I directionally do, I don't know if the exact numbers are true, but studies show that it's something like people in this field, because for 2 reasons. One, because of the communication differences and maybe not understanding right from wrong in a societally, it tends to make them more likely to be victims of that sort of stuff. And secondly, because you're probably more likely to have caretakers that aren't your immediate family if you're someone with health issues of this sort. And in any, even if you're just looking at foster care or step parents, etc., when you're talking about people that aren't biological parents taking care, your rates of victimization increase. So one of the things that happens, this is going to be very gross, so if you're squeamish, you should turn the channel here now, is what we would call a fecal smear. And it makes no sense. You'd be like, what? But it's where someone will take like their own fecal matter and they'll rub it on the wall or they'll rub it on themselves. And I dealt with that almost every day at the first house that I worked at. And obviously it could be for different reasons, but one of the reasons that occurs is it's a defense mechanism to make yourself as unappealing as possible because you've probably went through some sort of trauma. And so when you realize that that's, and in this particular case, given on what I knew, that's probably what was going on, it's still gross, but it's more understandable. Like, where you're like, oh, okay, and you kind of feel bad. So that was what I was dealing with. This house was supposed to be 3 people to 1. Most of the time my company had it 2 to 1. And even then, it was insane. I mean, again, I was getting paid like, I don't know, $10, $9, $11, something like that an hour. Not a lot of money. And I ended up working like all the time, like every day. like 24/7. And there wasn't a lot of sleep going on in that house. But there was such a reputation for violence, and it was such an intense violence, up into and including police having to show up regularly, that like no one at our office wanted to stop in at that house. No one from the state wanted to stop in. And when we go to a doctor appointment, the doctors didn't want us to walk in. They would send like a nurse out with scripts and be like, here you go, buddy. Like hand him through a slot in the car window. And I remember after being there like a month and a half, that like I was sitting up at night one night after my client went to sleep, and I came to the realization that there was not one person in this guy's life, not one that gave a shit. Not one. No one. No one at my company, not my coworkers, not his doctors, didn't have family, no one. And the only person that remotely gave a shit was me, who was a fucking drunk, who was an alcoholic, an absolute shitty fucking person. Just dog shit drunk that took this job because I had to and couldn't wait to find another job and get the fuck out of there. And that's it. That's all. That's the only person. This guy would have been 42, 43 at the time. And I just remember, like, I could tell you stories. It's just fucking insane. Like, we had to go to the emergency room one time, and at the emergency room, we had an incident where basically it required over 4 law enforcement officers piling on this person. It's a fucking scene. I was told by the doctors at that facility that we were never welcome back there. 4 months later, I go to that same facility without my client just to treat something for myself, and I'm basically fucking harassed by the doctor. We thought you were with that guy and we wouldn't have saw you and blah, blah, blah. And I told that doctor in no certain uncertain terms to go fuck himself. And how unprofessional he was being. Like, that's what it was like, though. And you can understand, though, why people would be like that, because it was insane. It was insane, but there should be some level of professionalism. That person, I won't go into all the details, but, you know, this was a person that I was talking about. We got stranded on the side of the road, and so we ended up having to get an escort from the police to the local hospital. One of the things that can happen is you can get what's called 302. The 302 is a forced hospitalization for psychiatric reasons. And so once someone's 302, they're out of my hands. Now it is the facility that 302 him's responsibility. We get to this medical facility, and they know the reputation of the person I'm with. So they're like, fuck you, we're not 302ing him. Because then we'll be responsible for his care. And there's a girl from the county, I'll never forget this, she was 21, it was her first week at this job. They call them sports coordinators. So it's someone from the county that facilitates care from people in this position. For 3 days, I stayed with her at this hospital as she bawled her fucking eyes out, called every hospital in the state trying to find a bed. Finally, if I'm recalling this, the governor at the time was Ed Rendell. His lieutenant governor personally got on the phone and demanded a facility in Pittsburgh opened up a bed because we were literally handcuffed to a wall for 3 fucking days in a lobby of a hospital. And I'm not eating, not showering, I can't leave, I'm just fucking there. With this 400-pound man in a lobby, handcuffed to a wall, his children come in with strep throat. It's surreal. You're like, how's this fucking possible? How can this happen? And no one gave a fuck. That girl cared. That girl cared. She was trying real hard. 3 days is a bit of an exaggeration. Technically, it was like 29, 30 hours. But we got there like super late on like a Tuesday night, like 11 p.m. And then we ended up leaving Wednesday in the a.m. But yeah, it's surreal. And you're just sitting there and you're like, no one gives a fuck. This guy, that dude's entire life was just a burden on everyone he met. No one took time to be like, who is this guy, right? What does he want? You know? And it was fucking sad, man. It was horribly depressing to me. Because that's the shit that you take with you. Not, I got punched in the head. That's, whatever, fuck that. As long as I didn't get killed, I figured I'd get paid, workers' comp, if anything shitty happened. So it was never that big of a deal to me. But that shit, and like I could tell you story after story, just the shadiest fucking shit, where I constantly find myself being like, How is it up to me to say something? I'm just some fucking drunk. I'm getting paid like $10 an hour. And I'll be at like a medical facility with a room full of doctors that are basically just like, how can we fucking shit on this guy and get him out of our hair as fast as possible? And I'm just like, yeah, can someone like, for a moment, pretend to give a shit? Just 1 second. 1 fucking second. That'd be nice. You know, and it's fucking crazy. I always said I would have loved to have written a book about it, but it's difficult because you have to remember there's medical privacy issues. So what can you really say? You know, so you have to speak about it in abstract terms, and you can't give specifics and shit like that. It's just, but it was very insane. But that's when I decided that I liked this line of work, because I was like, in that instance with that person, I was the only person that I think he liked, and he tried to kill me a lot, tried to beat the shit out of me a lot. But I was there many a night, in a psych ward or a hospital or just at home. And, you know, I ended up leaving that company. That person actually, tragically, the end of that is that person got put back into a facility. And the facility it was not fucking, I'll say it, it was Polk. And so when they finally got put into Polk, part of my job was going to be getting to visit that person because I was the closest person to them. So I was going to visit every 2 weeks. And you know, you're sitting at this big table with all these doctors and people in suits and like the head of my company and me, little fucking drunk me, getting paid $10 an hour. And they're asking me all these questions. They'd say like, well, you know, we noticed like dental hygiene, it's something we need to work on. What was up with that? And I'd be like, he really doesn't like, grooming's been difficult because really doesn't like being touched. And, you know, it's hard to talk him into, you know, we try our best. Oh, he'll have his teeth brushed every day. He'll do it himself independently. We'll take care of that. I'm like, great. You know, and they just, all these backhand insults of how shitty of a job I was doing from all these doctors and these people at this facility. And I remember one of the things they said to me was like, well, what about like physical activities? Because he's a pretty big guy. And I said, well, you know, we try to get outside and we walk the yard and stuff, but obviously it's difficult to get out in the community. So we've tried like treadmills, exercise bikes. We haven't had success with that. The best thing we've had is like looking at, we live in a sort of a wooded area and taking hikes around the area and stuff like that. Does he like swimming? I was like, I'm not sure. We've never been to like a public pool or anything like that. And they're like, he will be swimming with general population within 2 weeks. He'll be out there. You know, you kept him too sheltered. Okay. So I'm a piece of shit, and this place is going to show me how it is, and that and the other. Okay. So 2 weeks later, I go and you punch in. You got to go to the front desk. It's like security. And I said, I'm here to see this individual. Yeah, he's not allowed to have visitors. Apparently, it didn't go as smoothly as they were claiming. So he wasn't allowed to have visitors for a long time. I ended up moving on from that company under bad terms. I didn't like some of the stuff that was occurring at the company. Needless to say, an issue came where the state did an investigation, and I basically was somewhat of a whistleblower for the state. I'm not one to just talk shit and stir up trouble, but it was the type of situation where the state found something occurring that wasn't good, and my name was co-signed to it by our company, and I was like, bullshit. I kept receipts that show that wasn't me, and so my company let me go. Okay, fine, no problem. So that company did not, they were power of attorney of basically the only family that person that I'm talking about had. So some years later, that company, the leadership of that company hated me, whatever. So I never got to visit that person again. Some years later, probably 2 or 3 years later, a friend of mine that still worked at that company said, hey man, what are you doing like this weekend, like in 2 days? I was like, I don't know, nothing. Why? He's like, do you want to go out to Polk? Because that gentleman you took care of died. He died in the facility, and he doesn't have family. And I said, yeah, I'll show up. You know, I don't work for the company anymore, but I would show up. Okay. So like 2 days go by, I call the guy, no answer. Call him the third day. He picks up the phone, and I was like, hey, what's up, man? And he's like, yeah, the owner of the company, the CEO, was like, nope, Rob can't go. when I told them that I asked you, and then they told me not to go. So my man died alone, no one at the funeral, which is just emblematic of his entire fucking life. No one gave a shit. Just to the very end, just fucking every single person that was ever with that guy was just like, how do we get him out the fucking door? Throw him to someone else's problem. So that still fucking pisses me off to no end thinking about that. And now Polk shut down. I don't even know where he's buried. It's fucking brutal. But he had seizures so bad his one eye would constantly move. Just a fucking bad lot in life. Just a fucking rotten deal. Medical issues out of his control, exploited, and was incredibly dangerous. And I can understand why so many people didn't want to be connected to him because of that. But so much of it outside of his control. I mean, what would you do if your fucking eye moved 24/7 like that? Like, god damn. And no one gave a shit. No one at all. You know, there's one guy who gave a shit, but he was batshit crazy. He was this doctor that thought that he was autistic himself. He had Asperger's. And he thought that autism was closeness to God. And that leads to a bunch of other... I could talk at great length about that guy as well. Jesus. He made me take seance classes. And said that a lot of the problems we were having at that house wasn't because of the medical diagnosis, but it was because demons haunted the house. Yeah, fucking crazy shit, man. Just crazy. But yeah, that's a shitty story. But that's how I got involved in this line of work. And I'll be honest with you, I would be able to move on to other shit. I would. Like, I make $20 an hour. I have a grad degree. I could probably fucking do something making more money, working less hours. But I like what I do. I do. And I feel like until I had a kid, the hours didn't bother me as much because partially think it helped my marriage a little, where it's like you don't get at each other's throat if you're only seeing each other 4 days a week. You know, I used to work less. But now that I have a kid and it's like T-ball's starting here, it's like I can't do this shit forever. I can't fucking be, oh, I'm just going to be at work 100 hours a week, you know, and stream and do all the extracurriculars with my son and still be a reasonable husband, you know. Yeah, dementia's tough to deal with too. Yeah, so, you know, it's just, for me, that's what it was though. That the reason that I stuck in this line of work, where it was like, I constantly was telling myself, and I had a low opinion of myself. I had a high opinion of myself as far as like debate. I was good at it and I knew it. But I had a low opinion of myself as far as my like social worth. I was just a fucking drunk. I was good at being a drunk. I was fun. People liked being around me. But that's what I was. I was a drunk. And I knew it. And I was okay with it. And so it was really strange to me. All these people that you're like, oh, this person's a doctor. This person's an advocate from the state. This person owns a company that, you know, was obviously interested enough in this field to get a company and become a CEO. All of these people surely care, but they didn't. They didn't give a shit at all. And so to just sit there constantly and be like, how is it me? How's it fucking the town drunk? That's it? That's who it falls upon? To give a shit? Like, if it was me, I wouldn't want the fucking town drunk to be the guy. It was like, yeah, I got your back. But that's what it was. You know? And so I started that line of work. That was probably been let's see. Yeah, 15 years ago. I worked for that company, took a year off, and then got a job at the company I'm in now. And I've been with it ever since. So, anyways, didn't expect to talk about my job here a lot tonight. I know people were in for the politics, lost half the viewers. But that's okay. I know not everyone likes hearing about this shit. So, hopefully I'll be streaming Thursday. Hopefully I'll be home Thursday. I can't make any promises. Hopefully Friday I'll be streaming as well. Saturday, I am going to the monster truck rally with the wife and kid and some friends. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. The only thing I'm worried about is it gets very loud, so I'm hoping it's not too loud for my little guy's ears. But I'm excited. I'm fucking like burnt out as far as work and shit, so I can't guarantee I'll stream both Thursday and Friday, because last week I saw Hank for like 5 hours. I worked Saturday. I came in at 2, so I worked Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Then I got called in. My coworker couldn't come in, so I worked all Wednesday night into Thursday. So I got home Thursday night. I streamed all night Thursday. Friday morning, we had to take Hank to the in-laws because then we left for the wedding Friday. Friday was the pre-wedding stuff. Saturday was the wedding. We got home Sunday. Finally got home at noon. I had to be at work at 2. So I definitely want to spend time with Hank this week. I mean, we are doing the monster truck stuff. And then I am taking next week off. So I should be streaming consistently next week because I'll actually have vacation time. So it won't feel like I'm rushing, and we'll get up and we'll do some normal streams. So, but just to give you guys an idea, if you don't see me Thursday, I'll put a message out. Follow me on X. I'll put a message out if I can't stream Thursday, but hopefully I'll be able to. So it's not that I don't miss it. I wish I was streaming more. I love this. I love streaming, particularly talking about politics, particularly debating. I wish I had some more debates lined up, but it's very difficult. The other thing I was going to say is talking about being at work here. I'm off the clock now, so I could stream, but it could end at any minute. Like if the fire alarm goes, I'm done. Like that's it, stream over, right? So it can end at any minute. That's why I don't set up any collaborations, interviews, debates, etc. when I know I'm going to be at work, because even though I have downtime, I can't guarantee. It's not fair to someone to say, yeah, I'll debate you, and then 10 minutes in, the fire alarm goes off. You know, and so I can't do it. I don't plan anything on these days because I feel like I'm letting people down if I can't do it, and there's always a shot that anything could come up. So like a stream like tonight wasn't advertised. I was just like, yeah, I'll go. If no one wakes up or anything like that, I have 8 hours that I theoretically could have. Otherwise, get up out of here. So, all right, thanks, guys. We'll talk to you all hopefully Thursday. Don't let the bastards get you down. Elon's doing great. God save her day. Things are going good. Oh, thanks so much. A bunch of messages just pumped up. Thanks so much, Jarhead. I would have loved to have gone to DebateCon. I don't know what it is. The modern day debate people, like I've interviewed James and seems to like me, but they never reach out to me anymore. I don't think they can find people for me to debate, if I'm honest. But yeah, I'll reach out to them. We'll get some debates lined up. So, all right, everyone, we'll talk to you all soon.